There we go. All right.
That's our lowest time yet, 15 minutes.
Yes. If you've been living under a rock, another episode of Vulcan on the Soapbox. This show is the most entertaining, informative, insightful show that's on the planet. Yeah.
Step back on
Oh,
stage
whoa.
next time, rookie.
My bad.
I'm the one teaching lessons.
Got the ad that came on. A couple slip ups. So yeah, this is your host, Enos. So this show is designed to help elevate our reasoning skills, to highlight and give you tools to be better at analyzing the world that's around you. Again, I'm your host, Enos. I got my co-host who's to the right of me. If y'all don't mind, to the left, well, the way I'm looking at it. Y'all don't mind introducing yourselves?
So I'm Vulcan. Uh, I'm excited today. We're just going to conclude our three-part series. It turned out on Dr. Umar, an amazing orator who is very passionate about his convictions. A lot of us have learned quite a bit from him. But even though we've learned quite a bit from him and we can admire him, nobody is above healthy criticism, skepticism. We all need to be vigilant. We all need to be diligent. I can't even get that word out. To make sure that we're putting the right ideas inside of our heads and not allowing people to beguile us with fancy words, with sophistry. So I'll conclude by saying this. Dr. Umar Johnson, sophistry or reason? Which tool is he utilizing the most?
Man, I'm just here to get some shots
All
up
right, next.
and do this every once in a while.
No doubt, no doubt. Sorry about that. All right, so let's go ahead and get right into it, fellas.
Let's get in.
Everybody can see? Let's get into it. All right, here we go.
What do you say, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. fit in the midst of all this?
One of the big ironies, contradictions between the integrationists, Honorable Frederick Douglass, militant integrationist, Dr. King, nonviolent integrationist, Malcolm X, nationalists, or even if you look at Mr. Muhammad and his organization, one of the criticisms that has always been levied against the nationalist community, for all y'all talk, y'all haven't produced for the Black community what the integrationists have. Frederick Douglass helped get us a 13th Amendment, a 14th Amendment, a 15th Amendment. Dr. King helped get us a Civil Rights Bill of 64, a Voting Rights Act of 65, a Fair Housing Act of 68. That's 6 pieces of major legislation from 2 integrationist leaders. What have y'all gotten us on the nationalist side? I would partially concur to an extent that the nationalists have to do a better job of counting victories and achievements. We're good on rhetoric, good on the message, good on the platform, good on the principle. But when it comes to measurable gains for African people, outside of the Honorable Marcus Garvey, of course, and a few other nationalists, they really haven't achieved much. You see that? So most people are going to go to whoever puts the bread on the table. The integrationists put bread on the table. The nationalists, not as much. For me, Dr. King is a hero. Some people say, Dr. Umar, how in the hell can the Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. be a hero to a revolutionary Pan-Africanist? He wasn't focused on Africa. He wasn't about fighting the white man. You know why Dr. King is one of my heroes? I don't judge my heroes based on ideology. You feel me? I might get my associates and soldiers based on ideology. We ain't struggling unless you're a Pan-Africanist. But my heroes is based on their sacrifice for the people. Dr. King gave his life. Dr. King did not have to do what he did. Dr. King was born in a well-to-do, famous family. His father and grandfather were well-known preachers. Dr. King could have been a T.D. Jakes. Dr. King could have been a Creflo Dollar. He did not have to put his life on the line for Black people. His house got bombed twice with his wife and kids in it. The average Negro would have gave up then. Dr. King said, nah, I'm not giving up. So people can criticize Dr. King all they want. Who else got their house bombed twice and stayed with the movement? These Negroes don't even want to donate to a movement, much less risk their life for it. Dr. King struggled for us. And even though he's considered nonviolent, When they went up against them dogs and them hoses, ain't nothing nonviolent about getting bit by dogs. You know, there was the elders who got their breast bit off. The dog bit the breast off. Dr. King went to jail over 100 times. The nationalists wasn't going to jail for black people. They were talking shit while Dr. King was struggling. You see that? So for me, can't nobody say nothing to me about Dr. King. He wasn't perfect, but guess what? He's the last leader. He's the last leader in Black America to give you a serious, comprehensive plan for systemic change, politically, socially, and economically. Jesse Jackson ain't done that. Al Sharpton ain't done that. Nobody you can name has done anything even close to Dr. King, and we 55 years since he was murdered. So can't nobody say nothing to me about Dr. King. Every time I go to Atlanta, as much as I can when I'm in Atlanta, I go to Dr. King grave and I sit there and I get my sage out and I burn it and I talk to Dr. King, him and Queen Mother Coretta Scott King, because in my position, with what I'm trying to do, I'm picking up where he left off, not with the integration. I'm coming another way with the nationalism. But Dr. King had a little Pan-Africanism because after Malcolm got murdered in 65, Dr. King goes to Jamaica. He meets with the Garveyites in Jamaica. He visits Marcus Garvey's gravesite, and they give him a thorough education on what Garveyism is all about. Dr. King said Marcus Garvey was the first black man to give our people a large, serious movement for change. And when Dr. King came back from visiting the Garveyites in Jamaica, he started sounding like Malcolm. He started sounding like Garvey. Listen to Dr. King the last year of his life. He ain't preaching no damn integration. He preaching Garvey. When Kwame Nkrumah led Ghana to its independence on March 6, 1957, who was in that audience in Ghana celebrating the independence of the first post-colonial state? Dr. King and Coretta. He wasn't out with his Pan-Africanism, you feel me? But Dr. King had a space in his heart for Pan-Africanists, and he was definitely influenced by Garvey because the last year of his life, he was talking Garveyism, and that's why they had to die. Dr. King didn't die for integration. Dr. King died for economic revolution. The reason Dr. King was murdered, after he left Memphis, he was on his way to Washington, D.C. The Southern Christian Leadership Conference was spearheading a breadbasket campaign. He was taking poor people of every color, but he was taking poor people to America, to the nation's capital. Nobody was leaving unless they left with a job and a house. And Lyndon Baines Johnson and J. Edgar Hoover lost their mind. They said, if you let this Negro come to the nation's capital with all these poor people from across the country and erect a tent city and nobody leaving without a job or a house, it will embarrass this country and might lead to social revolution. Dr. King is the first man since Marcus Garvey, the Honorable Marcus Garvey, in my opinion, who damn near brought America to its knees. That's why they killed him. Not for integration, but for economic liberation.
And it just made me think about
Well, let me go and stop it real quick right there. I want him to finish this.
He was 21 years old.
21 years. And to show you, well, first of all,
I want him to finish the explanation about Martin Luther King. So I think what he's saying is very fitting because I have met people that have lambasted Martin Luther King. They didn't think highly of Martin Luther King at all. And I was shocked when I heard it. You know, I'm all for healthy skepticism about integration versus segregation. There's good points on both sides. Obviously, I have my own leanings towards integration, but I think him explaining to people, everybody here, especially in modern times, they hear that what Martin Luther King has done and him giving his life, that to me was pretty special. I remember there was one lady in particular, she was talking about how she didn't like Martin Luther King, and she had such a ardent opinion about it, she wouldn't even let me give any kind of counter perspective. So I don't want to talk about it. He's a traitor to our race, that's it.
He's a traitor?
Traitor to the race. And a lot of folks think it's like a Malcolm X versus Martin Luther King thing. If they like Malcolm X, they can't like Martin Luther King. If they like Martin Luther King, they can't like Malcolm X. And so I do appreciate that he did that. Especially him being Pan-African and being more nationalist to be able to say, hey, this integrator right here did a lot for us. Especially because a lot of us are anti-traditional education now within hip-hop, within the culture today.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so what happens is we taught about Martin Luther King in school. So a lot of people are rebelling against that, going like, I'm not taking this information from my oppressor or from the dominant culture or from the government. You know, so to hear him, as radical as he is, to give props to Martin Luther King on that level and did a really good job of explaining it, I think that's helpful for our culture in general. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I always appreciate a full plate of information, regardless of who it comes from. I hold it especially in high regard if it comes from someone who opposes that particular viewpoint or perspective, because it shows at least from an intellectual perspective, that they've done their homework and they know what they're talking about. They're not. I don't consider them radicals or um, there's a word I'm looking for. It's not coming to mind right now. They're
Well,
not. They're
one
not
thing
so
about
far gone on the end of the spectrum that they cannot acknowledge other viewpoints and perspective, opposing or not, that have solid uh, viewpoints.
Yeah, one thing I want to say about that, when you look up historical methods of determining, people trying to determine if certain historical things are accurate or not, what things that they'll do is they'll look at if this fact would be embarrassing. Like, so just kind of use the Bible, for instance, right? The fact that the disciples went back to doing what they were doing before Jesus had ever met them, and then them having to admit that their Savior was crucified was embarrassing for them. So for most historians say that part's got to be pretty much true because
Nobody would say that otherwise.
nobody would say that. Also, the Jews, the Romans not being able to find the body, the Jews not being able to find the body, that's embarrassing if you're a soldier and you can't find the body of somebody you just crucified. So I forgot the technical term for it, but it's like an embarrassment thing. So historians, when looking at historical information, determine if it's something that we should be taking more seriously, and we can consider it a part of the historical core. They'll look at, will this information be embarrassing to those at the time? So if you get or another, but more to your point would be like if you get the enemy to say it, then it must be true. Or that is sorry, not it must be
More
true.
likely.
It's more likely to be true.
Yeah.
Absolutely, it's more likely to be true if the enemy of that individual is saying. So, for instance, if China and America go to war, and then 1,000 years from now, in a Chinese textbook, it says that America beat
Was right.
China in a war. Historians would be like, that's more likely to be true because they could have wrote a history that was more favorable for themselves. They didn't do it.
Yeah. For
So
me,
I'm just saying that because
it's on certain points that both sides concur on.
Yeah.
Not necessarily if someone didn't say it, it's just a concurrence. So hey, I said this, and
too.
even though y'all can't stand me, y'all said that as well, right? Like I started the fight, but I did whoop you. All right, so we agree that you started the fight, regardless of how everything else went.
Yeah,
So
exactly. Yeah.
that's a point that we can agree on and move on from there. So the
That's the
contention on that
corroboration. They
particular
call that
point.
corroboration.
Yeah.
Yeah. I
Yeah,
do
that's
want
what
to
they call
add.
corroboration. A cop goes to sorry, go ahead.
No, I just want to add. When you said something earlier, when you said that some can love Malcolm X and not like Martin Luther King, you said something similar to that earlier, Volker.
Yeah, yeah.
All right, so
Some
well,
folks
people got to
said that.
just get a brief history lesson. What people don't realize, the early stages of Malcolm, not Malcolm Little, but early stages of Malcolm X when he was under the fruit of Islam or under Elijah Muhammad's teachings. That's a different Malcolm when he left the Nation of Islam. So when
Right.
he left the Nation of Islam, I know a lot of people are familiar with the movie Selma. Well, a lot of people don't know Malcolm X was actually down there doing Selma, and it's been documented that he actually went down there to help out Martin Luther King and actually had a conversation. I think it's in Coretta Scott King book, My Legacy, My Life. She actually said Malcolm X came to her, actually apologized for a lot of the stuff he was doing and to let her know he wasn't down there to cause division, that he was on their side. So when he left the nation, he was working more with the freedom fighters, the civil rights movement. He was more involved in that movement, before his timely
Yeah.
demise. So when people say, "Oh, I can't like Michael," is Malcolm versus Martin. That's a false narrative because at the end of his life, they was actually communicating more and actually, from other historians say they was actually building together, trying to,
Yeah.
yeah. So
I
I
think
just want to realize that, remember that.
I
Know
think
that.
when people say Malcolm versus Martin, I really prefer to pit the two ideologies against each other. That way you don't uh, conflate the individuals. Because like you said, uh, you're talking about Malcolm versus Martin, but when you start talking about Malcolm coming over to the other side a little bit or softening his viewpoints, then we no longer have that conflict in there. Whereas it's really an ideology conflict, where one is more divisionist than the other one. So it was just how Malcolm was feeling at the time, and not necessarily Malcolm himself as the person involved in the conflict.
All right. So y'all want to move on? I think Fresh dropped out. You want to go ahead and continue the video?
Yeah, we're good. I like how he slipped in that last part that Malcolm was Pan-African, a closeted Pan-Africanist at the end.
Always look at the timing of the murders. Right. It ain't just the murder, it's the timing. Right. Sam Cooke is murdered a few weeks before Malcolm. Sam Cooke, first black major artist to own his own publishing, close friends with Malcolm and Muhammad Ali and Jim Brown. Sam Cooke, rumor has it, was going to finance the new civil rights movement. Once King and Malcolm came together, Sam Cooke was going to finance. He had to die. You're not going to finance the black liberation. He died in December 64. Malcolm is killed in February 65. You know why Malcolm had to die from the government side? Malcolm was supposed to keynote a Third World Revolutionaries Conference with Che Guevara in a couple weeks. The U.S. government could not afford Malcolm X and Che Guevara to link up with all these African revolutionaries and Caribbean revolutionaries. Malcolm had to die February 21st to stop him from getting to that revolutionary conference with Che Guevara. You see that? Dr. King had to die on April 4th to make sure he never gets to the breadbasket campaign. Fred Hampton had to die December of 69 because Fred Hampton just came. He was part of the Black Panther Party Central Committee. He was one of the leaders. Huey and Bobby and the rest of the Black Panther Party Central Committee had just elected Fred Hampton to be the national and international spokesman for the movement. As you know, he was the best of their orators. You see, could you imagine with Fred Hampton as the international spokesman for the Black Panther Party? The U.S. government couldn't have that. Fred Hampton was our last great hope after they murdered King. Remember, they killed King April 68. They killed Fred Hampton the next year, December 69. Fred Hampton was going to be the next great black leader. He had to die right then and there because if they would allow him to build the momentum as a new international spokesman for the Black Panther Party, who knows where we would be right now. You always got to study the timing of the murder. There's a reason why he dies now, not a little bit earlier, not a little bit later. Yeah. And then after they take out Fred Hampton, 2 years later, George Jackson, Soledad brother, who just started a chapter of the Black Panther Party, in the prison, although he was co-founder of Black Guerrilla Family. He started a Black Panther Party chapter in prison, and that was part of the reason I believe they had to kill him, because he was politicizing the prison. He was doing that anyway, but now he had the support of the Black Panther Party, the most popular grassroots organization at the time, and that's why they set George Jackson up for murder. So look at that. Medgar Evers 63. I'm gonna go back to Africa. Patrice Lumumba 61, who I believe is the greatest Pan-Africanist since the Honorable Marcus Garvey in the Congo. Patrice Lumumba 61, Medgar Evers 63, Malcolm 65, King 68, Hampton 69, George Jackson 71. In my opinion, when they killed George Jackson on August the 21st, my birthday, but I'm not born in 71, I'm later than that. But when they killed George Jackson on my birthday, I believe that was the metaphorical and symbolic end of the Black Liberation, Black Panther Party era. However, I was wrong because what happens in 71? Black Liberation Army is born. You feel me? So at the decline of the Panthers with the murders of Fred and George, the Black Liberation Army takes off. And the Black Liberation Army, which was more aggressive than the Black Panther Party militaristically, because they stood up to the cops. They went toe-to-toe with the cops. They bust Assata Shakur out of prison in New Jersey and got that sister to Cuba. You feel me? So we got to make sure we study our Black Liberation Army history. Everybody know the Panthers, but what about the BLA who came after the Panthers, who kept the torch going, you see? And then in the early 1980s, most of them are either assassinated by the police.
Can we pause it right here?
And that's when the U.S. government said, we can't handle more of this.
Now, this is the thing about a lot of stuff that he's saying. This is why I think we have to be mindful when it comes to any great orator like Dr. Umar or anybody else involved. You always have to have some truth when you want to mix in a little bit of your Kool-Aid. So he's going to say a lot of things that are accurate because he's been studying, he's been doing his research. Now, some of this stuff is speculation about why somebody died at what time, but I wouldn't even really raise an issue. We'll never know.
At no point does he tie this stuff back around together to be like, here's the proof or here's the hard evidence. It's at this point it's still all conjecture.
Yeah, it's all conjecture. And
things that happen things that happen in history that no one knows enough about, so he can utilize it because there's a lot of uncertainty surrounding it.
Yeah.
So he can shift it or shape it however he wants. And I'm not saying it's not true. I'm saying using those things as evidence or proofs for his rhetoric is it's a reach.
Yeah, and that's my concern a lot of times with guys such as himself, is that they have all these historical data points to use. You know, this, and this. And that stuff, most of us are never going to go and Google that stuff. We're familiar enough with it to go, that's plausible. A lot of us know that the government has been involved in killing certain black leaders in the past. We do know that. We understand that. So it's not completely out of the realm of possibility that it happened at a certain point in time in history before some other thing happened. Will we ever really know? We won't ever know. And my whole thing is, though, when he puts other concepts in with that, him being the greatest, activist of all time, and other claims that he may make here and there, I want people in their mind to separate those two things. The historical fact that Abraham Lincoln was the 16th president, that's a historical fact. But somebody said Abraham Lincoln
Was the
didn't
greatest
like
president.
cows. Yeah, it was the greatest president. That's a different claim. You got to substantiate that. You can't substantiate it by bringing up facts about him being the 16th president. And that's what a lot of times what you see what Dr. Umar does. We've already covered in other shows of this, is that you can smuggle some of your philosophies, some of your spiritual beliefs. He talked about going to his ancestors. He mentioned that earlier about like he goes to visit Martin Luther King and Coretta Scott's grave and other graves and speaks to the ancestors.
Yeah.
You know, I haven't heard anybody really have him to validate his own spiritual beliefs
I
about that.
consider it similar to putting a pill inside of peanut butter for your pet or your animal, in the
For
sense
sure.
that he weaponizes a lot of African American anger, a lot of African American outrage based on the fact that our leaders was taken from us. And to be honest with you, we still have to prove that they were taken from us, assassinated, because that's the only way that makes sense. And I'm not saying it's not that. So, before you get your your extracurricular uh heavy support, Black Panther Party folks on here, I'm not saying that it's not. I'm saying when you're pushing a national, right, a worldwide, an international, if you will, um agenda, you cannot utilize things that are like triggers to do that, i.e., hey, this is true, and here's why it's true, because A, B, C, and D, and none of that stuff is substantiated. None of those points are facts or substantiated, but you use them because you know that it will garner the required or the desired
Mm-hmm.
um, emotional reaction from your target audience.
Absolutely.
So for me, it's a little more, I won't say sinister, but I think it's more intentional. I don't think this is a miscue. I think he's purposely utilizing those things wrapped up with that. Because again, he hasn't substantiated it. He hasn't offered, documentation, any sort of documentary, any sort of, writings or leaked evidence. Just like, yeah, if you look at
Yeah.
this, they were talking about it. Like, he's just like,
And
yeah, remember
I
they
want to speak to that.
stole Dr. King from us.
Yeah, and I want to speak to that. I wouldn't expect him to in that setting. I just want the audience to recognize that he hasn't done so. That's
Right.
my big thing. You know, the quote, the book of Acts with Paul, when Paul was speaking to the Bereans, the Bible talks about the Bereans were the most noblest of the Jews because they were searching to see if what he was saying was true. We're not going to validate everything. We're not going to try to check and fact check everything. That's okay. We don't have time to fact check everything in the world. But just make sure in your mind you register it as unproven.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And that's the thing. It's not, again, I want to go back and say, I'm not saying that it's not true. I'm saying on a stage this large, talking to as many people as you are, to be having these conversations without any substantial actual evidence or hard facts, and just expect people to follow, your lead, like do this, is a little, suppose prideful, but also like underhanded, if you will.
Yeah.
And then
Like,
I would say
and here's the thing. I'm gonna say this last thing. To what Vulcan's saying, and the whole point of this, I'm not saying they're right or wrong, right? Because if you really look at it, that's what preachers and pastors do. It's a faith-based philosophy,
Yeah.
right? So we're not saying he's right or wrong. We're saying it's a religion. The way he's going about it, the way he's preaching, the way he's presenting his message, it's a religion as opposed to a political movement.
Yeah.
And it should be viewed as such based on his tactics and techniques.
I also want to add, I want to say this. Can y'all hear me fine?
Yeah.
I want to say, and to the audience, not to say what he's doing is right or wrong, but if you're going to say these things happen in history, start off saying this is a theory. Start off saying, okay, this is conspiracy theory.
Yeah.
Okay, I don't know for sure. Don't say that as if it's matter of fact. It could be misleading to your audience. I just wanted to say that.
But you can't invite, if you're looking to rile people up and get them in an emotional tizzy, you can't invite critical thinking into that speech, because then people actually will critically look at what you're saying.
Yeah, facts.
Definitely analyze that.
Yeah. They'll if you tell them to before you say it, like, they'll actually be like, you know what, we don't actually know that happened, and then there's some chinks in your armor at that point.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's keep it
Ready
going.
to get back into it? All right.
Yes, sir.
Keep going. What else?
Let's get it.
Gotta realize the 1960s and 70s, we damn near brought America to its knees. Do you realize from the 60s to the 70s, specifically, I'm gonna go 55 to 75, more specifically, right? From 55 to 75, you had more legitimate Black revolutionary organizations fighting for our people's freedom than any time in history except for slavery. Could you imagine being J. Edgar Hoover? And I don't want you to imagine being him. You wake up every day, you got a new group. You got Stokely Carmichael over here. You got H. Rap Brown over here. You got Malcolm over here. You got King. You got the Freedom Riders. You got the sit-ins. You feel me? Black Panthers, Black Liberation, Deacons for Defense. Bro, we almost did it. And how did the government respond? They said, we need a weapon that can shut all this shit down. And you know what they came up with? 1980. CIA dropped off crack cocaine. Boom. Chemical warfare. 1983, U.S. government dropped off HIV, AIDS. Boom. Biological warfare. Crack and AIDS was sent into the Black community to prevent the rise of another Black messiah after the deaths of Malcolm, King, Fred Hampton, George Jackson. And the
Let me pause. Let me pause this real quick.
Recordings just got better. Hey, it's Dana from StreamYard.
Go ahead.
That whole, and I'm not saying it's true or not, but isn't that whole thing contingent upon them knowing that the Black community would take those drugs? Like, could you do something like that right now? Could you just drop crack off in the ghetto? What?
I like rocks.
You didn't mute your mic. What were you just doing? Did you just clean your camera with a Whataburger wrapper? What's going on?
A Chipotle napkin. Come on,
man. Y'all folks need to stop stealing Chipotle napkins, man. They're gonna go out of business messing with y'all.
They get too much business. $13, $14 to get a plate over there, man. They already just hit me upside the head.
So you figure you owe them napkins?
So the least they should be to do is give me some.
I never liked that theory or that philosophy. Not that it's not true. I'm just saying, to me, what makes sense is, how would they have known, like, hey, we drop crack off in here, they're gonna eat it up and it's gonna kill everything? Like, what evidence did they have prior to that? Are we talking heroin? What are we talking about as far as like crack was targeted for the Black community? You would have had to know, especially for a campaign that large with that much riding on it, you would have had to know that was something that would take hold of the Black community like that, specifically the Black community.
Yeah, a lot of that. I mean, there is some evidence that suggests that for sure, that the government has had a hand in paying for wars that they couldn't technically be involved with.
Yeah.
With the money made within the Black community on drugs and stuff like that. So there's some evidence to support that. Was it?
No,
done?
I'm not saying saying that they didn't do it. I'm saying they would have had to know. If it's a money grab, it's different than political. than using it as a political tool.
No, that's exactly what I was gonna say. Now maybe they were trying to knock out a bunch of birds with one stone, but I mean, was it because they're trying to keep there from to be another black messiah, or was it because they wanted to fund a war, or was it because they wanted to keep the black community down economically and financially? Again, him being Pan-African and him being a separatist, it's in his best interest to paint the government as bad as possible. And I want to make this point right here. There's a quote from my favorite scholars that says this. Well, he didn't originate the quote, but I heard it from him first. But it says, "Don't let the perfect be the enemy of the good. Don't let the perfect be the enemy of the good." And what I mean by that is that when you compare American government to our ideal of a perfect government, it's going to fall short every time.
Right.
Just like when you think about a woman or a man that you would like, they're going to be maxed all the way out because it's going to be the most attractive, most funniest, most smartest, most romantic, whatever your thing is, most submissive, whatever it is you're into, person ever. Because that's how powerful our mind is, right? The thing is that in the real world, we can compare America to other governments. And when you compare America to other governments, a lot of stuff that America tolerates, China ain't playing about. Russia ain't playing about. There's a story that I heard, I don't know if it's true or not, but a guy who was a Super Bowl winner was talking about he was chilling with Putin. And while they're hanging out, Putin saw his Super Bowl ring. And
Just
Putin saw
took it.
Super Bowl and just took that ring. That's my ring, punk.
Hey,
Well, it's like
so
both ours. But in your country, though.
question. I got a question about that statement or your viewpoint in that statement. Do you think that in not letting the strive for perfection get in the way of good, do you think that we should settle with good, or do you think we should keep striving?
Again, I think we always got to do both. It's almost like having parents, right? We love our parents because we pretty much say our parents are the best they can do. Now we know they probably could have done better if they really wanted to. They weren't doing perfect,
right?
And sometimes our parents may even know some things they could have did better and chose not to do it better.
Right.
They have their own desires, like all of us do as parents, right?
Right, but my point is, do you stop communicating at some point because?
No, I was going to connect it and say this right here. So when I'm thinking about my parents, I think about the country. I can keep in my mind thing that they did a really good job with me, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I can also say that maybe they made certain decisions that they knew were in the best interest of themselves at times, or what they wanted to get accomplished, that weren't going to suit their child the most in that circumstance, whether it be studying, how much time they're going to make me study, or they're going to let me watch TV, or let me stay up late at night. Whatever parents do when they compromise this and that, we make certain sacrifices. I can judge my parents like I can judge the country and go, hey, they weren't perfect. It wasn't perfect, but there's some things that could have been done better. So I can do that in my life. I can tell the country the same way. I can still tell the country, hey, these things need to be improved. But I can say it's better than what it would be like. I would rather be here than China. I'd rather be here than Russia.
So is that addressing the separatists as opposed to the integrationists? Because my whole thing is,
it's not addressing. Can you still? I thought you said something about can you still be critical? Can you still?
That's what I'm saying.
Want more. You can still want more, want better, while still recognizing it's better here than a lot of other places.
Okay, so to that phrase, how is perfect getting in the way of good? Are you just saying just acknowledge that is not all bad?
Perfect gets in the way of good all the time.
No, I'm saying in this particular aspect, i.e., yeah, America is better than a lot of other places. Does that make it good for us?
Well, I think
there's kids getting sexually molested or emotionally abused in mansions. They could be poor, right? They could be hungry. Does that mean they should not speak out because their situation is good outside of that, or like what's the? And I'm just asking for clarification on the statement.
Yeah. So again, that's the point that I'm making is that you can separate the two. You can still want better in your situation while still recognizing you have it better than a lot of the people have it. And again, this what I'll call that reference group bias thing again. What's your favorite reference? If you know, I remember Dave Chappelle had a joke where he was saying, my parents did just well enough in life to be poor around white folks.
Right.
And it was hilarious, right? His whole point was saying that when he says in a joke, like, when I went to the white people's house, all their stuff worked.
Yeah.
And the whole point is saying, like, he was saying, I didn't grow up in the hood. He said that I didn't grow up in the hood. When I was hanging out with Nas and these guys talking about, man, it was wild in the PJs, son. He was saying, like, he doesn't have that to relate to, right?
Correct.
So he recognized he had it better than a lot of people had it, right?
Right. So,
but he's still saying, hey, we're not where some of my white friends, you know, households are.
So my question is, when you bring up that statement, who are you addressing? And I say that because, are we asking these particular groups of people or a section of people to say, hey, while you're still complaining about how things are going, also say that it's not that bad? Like, what's the ask? What's the purpose of bringing that statement up outside of the fact that it's true?
Well, I think it being true is a great reason to bring it up, but I think what you're saying is a great question. What it does, well, I want to go to this comment right here. I mean, this is, you know, maybe a little bit wordy definition, but we'll go ahead and work with it. Reference group, because I remember,
Reference group bias.
Reference group bias. I mentioned that because this is what takes effect whenever we're comparing things. In general, we compare things.
Right.
And so reference group effects discovered in cross-cultural settings occur when responses to self-report items are based not on respondents' absolute level of a construct, but rather on their level relative to a salient comparison group. So that's really important because what this is basically saying is right here. An example I want to use, I'm not sure if I'd use it on Facebook per se, but so I'll just say this right here. This is saying that when we can compare something to our ideals in our head, it's going to change our attitude towards it because it's going to woefully fall short. If anybody's been married before, anybody had a relationship before, you know what the feeling when you compare that person, that moment, to your idea of what you would like somebody to have done or somebody to be, right?
Right.
But then when you think about the actual landscape of people out there, then you go, I actually did a pretty good job picking for myself.
Right. But does this mean you stop asking your partner to improve?
Well,
does this mean you no longer, because you did all right, does this mean you no longer require improvement or growth or expansion?
Sometimes it is. Sometimes it's like, you know what? That's not worth the battle.
Let me step in. Can y'all hear me?
Yeah, go ahead.
I want to address what Fresh is saying. Yes, you can do that, but does that your counterpart or your partner has to be? Do you have to look at them as your enemy?
That's a good question.
No, I don't think you're. But it's are we
like
partners with the American government?
No, I'm just saying that the analogy you used earlier, the way we look at our parents, is it okay for us to look at our parents as the enemy or a loved one that wasn't perfect? They could improve, but are we viewing them as the enemy? Don't let the enemy be the what was the name?
Don't let the perfect
be the enemy
of the good.
Yeah.
Because you may not be to see how good you have it if you're so focused on the perfect.
I know, I understand the concept and I agree with it. I'm just saying, how does that manifest in this particular conversation when we're talking about?
Yeah. Well, what it means
does that mean you live in America? You could be living in Haiti. Shut up about it, or
well, it's definitely going to change how I attack the system, right? So if I think that if I'm comparing America only to the perfect government that I can imagine in my head, I'm going to loathe America. I'm going to hate every single aspect of America.
Okay.
And we see that we're very anti-establishment within the context of hip hop and within the broader Black community in general. Now, a lot of us are affiliated with the military, so there's kind of like a paradox there to some extent. But there were a lot of Blacks. My grandfather, for instance, doesn't believe Blacks should be part of the military. Now, I haven't asked him 2023, but growing up as a child, he didn't believe that Black people should be a part of the military. It's
because
because
Which
it
is
would be
funny.
defending a country that doesn't serve us or doesn't see us as equal.
that's exactly right.
And
And
I
so
can understand that. So essentially, and this is what I'm trying to figure out is who that particular message was aimed at. And we're talking about people who just hate America,
yeah,
who
people
see
that
who
yeah,
see America as an enemy, as opposed to people who are looking for America. Which is why at the beginning of the statement, I specified, like, are we talking to separatists? Are we talking to integrationists? Because integrationists would be like, hey, we like America, we want it to be better for us. Whereas separatists, excuse me, are saying like, fuck America altogether. Excuse my language, that's my fault. Forget America
But it,
altogether. So,
well,
and that's kind of what I was
there
trying to
goes our,
get to. Like this
there
message
goes our
that,
Sesame Street endorsement.
huh?
There goes our Sesame.
But that's kind of what I was trying to figure out because I don't want people to look at that and be like, well, Vulcan think we should just shut up about it. Like, no, he's talking to a certain group or sect of people with a certain with a certain belief system, i.e.,
Yeah,
we don't want nothing to do with America. We don't want nothing to do with the government. We don't want anything to do with white people. Whereas I'm like, how you gonna do that in America? That's always my thing. I'm not a huge proponent of go back to Africa as it was levied against us as a people just based on how we look.
yeah.
But I will say that if you hate America, like go somewhere else. Because the logic for me is like if you hate America and everything about America, you want blacks to do everything on their own. I'm like, how would you accomplish that in America?
mm-hmm. Yeah.
Outside of leaving, which I'm not saying brothers and sisters leave. I'm saying if you really don't want nothing to do with America, or you would prefer to separate from America as opposed to integrating with America and making it better for everyone, then what you doing here? How are you going to accomplish your goals here? Right now, for me, you're separating us, right? It's a division amongst the people. If you don't want to be here, we're fighting for one thing. You're fighting for something different in the wrong place. Like, go somewhere else with that. Go if you don't want to be here, go to Africa. Go back to Africa. That would be cool with me because then we can focus the folks who want to stay here, right? You know what I'm saying? The folks who want to work on the marriage, we can focus on that. If you want to get a divorce, then leave.
Have you ever had a disgruntled employee and you've been in management on some level? You understand it.
Yeah, you have to separate them because they're going to poison the rest of the batch, the flock.
Because it's okay. It's okay. They have a complaint or suggestion box in most corporate facilities, right? Where you can complain, you can give a suggestion, but there are some employees who are just already dead set on being disagreeable about everything.
Correct.
That's a cancer. So if I were to make it short, so we can get back to the video, I would say you got three kind of employees and three kind of citizens. You got the employee that loves the company or just understands they just do their job and go home. It suits their purposes, a mutual exchange, their time for pay. Then you got the second tier person who looks at it like, I'm not gonna like this place no matter what. It sucks. It should be better, but they're not leaving. They're not leaving the place. They're still staying there.
Right.
While they complain about it. I'm saying if you've never been in management, you're not really gonna get this all the way.
No, I think it's a simple concept.
It's pretty simple.
Think about it as opposed to business. Think about it as a teacher in a classroom.
Yeah. So I'm saying, so that's the second person.
And the second person probably is more involved in trying to make improvements.
Well, no, I'm saying the second person.
The second person is just a malcontent.
Yeah, they're just a malcontent. They're not.
They're just there to cause trouble.
And then you got the third. So then you got the third person that is in the middle. They put stuff in the complaint box.
Right.
Yeah.
They go to the meetings.
Yeah.
To offer
suggestions, improvements.
They don't gossip about what's going on. They don't do none of that kind of stuff. What they do is they let people know, hey, this is things we need to improve on. They do it in constructive ways. And in the government initiatives,
right,
and referendums and things of that nature within our political system. So there are people who do constructive things to help the country get better because they're not completely anti whatever. The person who can work at that job and know it needs to improve still goes, hey, this is a pretty good place to work, but there's some things that can be better.
Oh yeah. Oh, so that was the delineation that I was trying to understand for the audience. The house we got pretty good bones. We just need to do some renovations to make it livable for everybody.
And remind, like, and the third person is always reminded the people in the higher staff what's old. Remind them of the rules that try to make the company more consistent on their word of what they said they was going to do. You know?
Correct. Correct.
I do want to say this,
and that goes to Martin Luther King talking about deliver on your promissory note.
There you go. I was waiting. That's why I want you to speak on that. I want you to speak on that.
I want to get back to the video because we can go a long time, but so I want to say this. I'll say this really quick. Martin Luther King didn't treat the movement as completely anti-establishment. What he did was a much more cunning and strategic plan, which was
hold the establishment accountable.
Hold the establishment accountable. We are all in this together. You've made certain promises. We want you to own up to those promises.
Right.
We want you to deliver on what you said.
Yeah.
Hey, when you have kids and your kids do that to you, it's a whole different kind of feeling.
Yep.
Hey, I thought you said, and you're like, dang.
Yeah. Hey, Johnny, we had this talk with your mother last week, and you said you was going to behave.
Yeah.
Are you going to behave, or am I going to have to ask you to leave? Like, it's up to you. What do you want to do?
That's a good point. But I'm talking about when the kid does it back to you sometimes. They're like, but Daddy, you said we were going to. You're like, dang, I did say that.
Yeah. But you have to have a certain level of personal conviction for that. So if you equating the parents with the government, I don't know what you're going to get that. But that's another topic.
Yeah, I do want to say.
Hey, we see the banana wearing all yellow.
I'm gonna say. He say, "Are you eating a banana?"
Are you just eating a banana wearing all yellow? Rico looking at it. I don't like that. About to drop it down for them niggas.
I'm gonna get right into the video, but it's one thing you said earlier about how we questioned a lot of people that was going to the military, especially black men.
Yeah.
Keep in mind, a large portion of when we talk about economics in the black community, a large portion of people that's wealthy in our community, a lot of them are actually retired military.
Yeah.
So keep that nowadays. It's a large portion of that wealth is between, of course, y'all know the billionaires, but people that was born, I believe, don't quote me on this, from black folks that was born in the years from 1950 to the middle of 1960s. Yeah. But anyway, we'll get back to the video. Y'all ready?
Sexually transmitted diseases now.
Yes, which we even had before that because they started giving us STDs during slavery. Because remember, according to their scientists, many of the STDs that black people got were foreign to us in Africa. Gonorrhea, chlamydia was unknown on the African continent. Those are European diseases. And how did we get them? Because they raped our mothers, raped our fathers, raped our daughters. You see, remember now, during slavery, it was very common to catch a slave master 40, 50 years old in the bed with a 7-year-old black girl raping her. Oh, pedophilia and slavery went hand in hand. And that's why there's a movement in America right now to legalize pedophilia. The age of sexual consent is 16. They want to take it down to 14. Some people want to take it down to 12. And there was just a body from the United Nations that came out with a statement a couple months ago. I read it when I was speaking in Barbados this past spring, that they said people should not be charged with a crime for having sex with minors if the minors give their consent. Can I ask you a question? How can my 12-year-old daughter give her consent to have sex with a 40-year-old man? You see that? How can your 8-year-old son consent to having gay sex with a 50, 60-year-old man? The reason why the pedophile movement is trying to normalize sex with children is many of the world's leading pedophiles are multi-billionaires who can't afford to go to jail. This is why Epstein had to be murdered. Jerry Epstein wasn't the only one. He's just one of the organizers. You understand? Bill Clinton was on that plane with Epstein. Donald Trump was on that plane with Epstein. Hillary was on that plane with Epstein. I think Bill Gates was on that plane with Epstein. You know why Epstein was murdered? They said it was a suicide. They killed him. He said, I'm not going down by myself. When he said that, they had to kill him. because he would start naming names. I believe Barack and Michelle was on the Epstein plane. You feel me? So pedophilia is not about one person. It's about a movement. And unfortunately, they used R. Kelly as a scapegoat to deflect.
Bruh, sensationalism, man. Let me say the most irrational, irate thing that'll right. Let me mix it in with he keep doing that.
Hold
Like
on.
he goes well known things, pure conjecture. You can't put those things together, bro. You cannot.
But that's the whole scheme of it, to put that together, because this where he goes. And this, I want the audience to hear this, because this is when you got to really be keen. He brings up slavery and we're getting sexually transmitted diseases from the slave master and rape and stuff. Sorry, grape, stuff like that. And then he goes, and that's why. Then he goes 2023. You see what I'm saying?
That's a huge leap.
See that leap? Did everybody see that leap?
Huge leap.
Again, he didn't have to say that's why. You know what I'm saying? But again, if you know he's Pan-African, he has to make the white man the devil. He has to make him the savior. So he has to connect, because again, he knows we're going to be emotionally provoked when you bring up slavery, anything related to slavery, anything related to any rape and all that kind of stuff, right? So he takes that cauldron of emotion that we have, right? And then he transfers it to modern times.
Yep.
When it comes to that. Now, again, I have no issue. None of us on here would support any type of child endangerment, right? But the reality is, now we're taking two negative emotions and we're gonna apply it back to the white man.
Yeah, let me find the thing that you're mad about. Let me mention it, and then let me take your anger, but also be mad about my thing.
Exactly.
They're not the same thing.
And when he says that's why thing, again, that's being a little bit crafty. Not a little bit. That's being crafty with the language. Because only two words he threw in there. And that's why. Now again, that's why seems pretty minuscule. But there's no correlation between slavery and the modern movement to make underage whatever acceptable.
Or if there is, you need to build that bridge for the people you target to. You can't just say, here's a one fact and that's why this fact, without linking them together.
Exactly.
With evidence. You can't just say that, because again, there's not enough. One, he doesn't have enough time. So if he's a great orator, and I agree with you, this may not be the platform to do that on. But if you don't have the time to do that, then you shouldn't make statements like that. You shouldn't correlate things that way if you don't have time to really tether them together.
Guy. I mean, again, you're right. It's not morally correct to do that kind of stuff. Again, that's a sweeping generalization if I've ever heard one. That was a stretch, Mr. Fantastic stretch.
Bro, and he got real reachy at the end. Yeah. I believe Barack and Michelle was on that plane. Where do you get that from?
Yeah.
And I'm not saying they weren't. I'm saying you can't just say things without no type of like, and here's why I think Michelle and Barack was on that plane, because they would. And okay, so now I can see where you came to that conclusion, as opposed to, let me just say, more exacerbatory statements that's gonna fire you guys up.
All right, let's keep cooking. Unless y'all got some more so you want to say about that. Let's keep cooking.
Nah, he get crazy with some of the stuff he says.
That's why it killed me off.
It's a little girl.
It's a little girl.
Reflect from the white-owned, white-controlled, white-led, white-financed pedophile movement. Don't get me wrong. If R. Kelly is having sex with underage children, he should be held accountable for that. But that's not why R. Kelly went to jail. R. Kelly went to jail because a certain music company was stealing R. Kelly's music, didn't want to pay for it, so they had to bankrupt him through lawyer fees by charging him with the sexual exploitation of the children. Same thing with Bill Cosby. Bill Cosby didn't go to jail for harassing white women. Bill Cosby went to jail because him and Camille Cosby owned a home in Massachusetts that got oil underneath of it, and the second richest oil company in the world wanted to drill under the home, and Bill Cosby and Camille organized their neighbors to resist the oil company drilling. Right after that, all these ugly white women come up from 40 years ago talk about Bill Cosby molested me back in the 1970s and the 1980s. What white women you know get sexually harassed by the #1 television star at the time? Remember, Bill Cosby opened the door for Richard Pryor. There would have been no Richard Pryor without Bill Cosby from North Philly. And Richard Pryor is the greatest comedian of all time, by the way. But Bill Cosby opened the door for him. He's the #1 black man on TV, the first black actor to get his own series on nationwide TV, and you don't call the police on him? You don't tell a soul. You wait 40 years until you old and nasty looking and say this man harassed you. Bull crap. They got the women together to do that in order to bankrupt him so he could sell that house and the oil company could get their drugs. None of these people are going to jail for that. Michael Jackson, when he got accused of the pedophilia, and by the way, the white boy he allegedly molested, he was on Vlad. He said his parents made it up. He just recently did the white boy who Michael Jackson allegedly assaulted. What he got the lie for? Ain't no money. He said, my mother and father made that up and made me do it for money. He said it. So why did they come out against Michael Jackson with the false pedophile accusations? Because Michael Jackson was about to buy Marvel Comics. You didn't hear what I just said. Michael Jackson, who already owns the Beatles catalog, half of Elvis catalog, half of Sony Records, is about to buy Marvel Comics. You think Wakanda was something? Imagine if that was Michael Jackson on Wakanda. It would have been off the hook. So they hit Mike with the pedophile rumors to force him out of the bidding, because as you know, Marvel Comics, that's children. So if you're having sex with kids, you ain't got no business bidding on children's magazines. That was the propaganda to sabotage Mike from getting Marvel Comics. It's never what you see. It's never what you see. They murdered Whitney Houston because Whitney Houston was going to order an audit on her royalties, an audit on her publishing. Oh, yes. And Whitney Houston wanted her masters back. You think he was going to give her masters back? So you died in the same hotel.
Whitney Houston was a known drug user who died by the drug that she was using, an overdose. That's common. How can you put and I'm not saying it didn't happen. I'm saying you can't just say stuff like that without no type of proof. Like, what are you talking about? Where's the interviews that you're referencing? Like, he gave one with Vlad, all right? So that's good, right? The Michael Jackson thing. He referenced that. They murdered Whitney Houston with drugs.
Hey, y'all, we got a comment that says, we ready to admit Kanye was right?
About Kanye said a lot of things, B. you got to specify.
You can't just co-sign Kanye nowadays, man.
Yeah. I can't. Kanye said a lot of wild things. You gotta specify what we're talking about. I'm ready to go, but I just think I just have to keep calling this stuff out, because when he says this stuff, you're inclined to believe him and just go off of that. My whole thing is go do your research.
I'm just going to ask Lamar, ask him to clarify. All right, y'all ready to get back in?
Yeah, he can. I don't want to wait on his clarification, but we can address it later. Yeah, go ahead and go back to the video.
All right.
Party, and he don't cancel the party. This is your number one selling artist of all time. Whitney Houston was the number one selling artist of all time, female, until Mariah passed her. But guess what? Whitney Houston is still the only black artist in history to be certified diamond 3 times. Not even Michael Jackson was certified diamond 3 times. I Will Always Love You is the number one selling female song in history. Whitney's version, not the original. And you broke? Oh, Whitney said, I can't possibly be broke. We got to look at my royalties, open up the books. Somebody couldn't allow that to happen. And that's why he had her killed before her pre-Grammys party and still had the party. Because that was a ritual sacrifice for going against the white power structure. That's the Hollywood Hilton. You don't think it's cameras on every floor? You don't think it's cameras on every floor in the Hollywood Hilton? Why the hell we ain't see the footage of who went in Whitney's room? It's on the damn camera. It's on the camera. They're not going to show you that because the white power structure killed Whitney. And that's why none of these rappers don't speak up about nothing serious going on in the black community, because they know how the game works. You go against the power structure, we will get you involved in a ritualistic sacrifice. White supremacy and demonology.
So let me ask you a question. Let me pause real quick. I'm gonna ask a question. I don't even need an answer. I just want to pose a question. How did they decide who dies and who gets discredited?
It's the white man. They have their ways.
Yeah, but I'm saying, how do we decide we kill Whitney Houston because she about to audit her stuff, but we just lock Bill Cosby up and give him a chance to, even though arguably what Bill Cosby was doing would have a greater impact than Whitney. Whitney Houston just worried about her money. So we can't just kill Bill Cosby. He's old.
Again, this is a classic tactic. He has to get us to be in fear and really paranoia.
Right.
Everything's attacking us from all different directions. Who should I look to? Who shall hear my plea? The King Kong of consciousness from the heavens.
Don't say it for him, because he's gonna get to it. I believe. Let him say that.
Yeah, we're gonna let him cook it on his own. But I just want to say this thing. All of this, everybody that we can think of, they're all being taken out by the white man for whatever reasons. These people never
Die by natural causes.
They never die by natural causes. They never made any mistakes. It's always about somebody's sinister plot to get rid of them for some reason that we can never validate at this point.
Right.
And why wouldn't any of them ever say it? You ever seen the movie I, Robot? I know you've seen I, Robot.
Yeah.
But the thing is, like, remember how the guy had to kill himself in order to, unalive himself?
In order to bring the person who would ask the right question.
Will Smith to be able to get over there or whatever the case may be.
Yeah, because he has a natural prejudice towards robots.
Yeah. So the whole thing is like, you know, Dr. Umar is setting this up to be something like that, where he wants us to have a natural prejudice against anything involved in white, anything involved in the government, so that everywhere we look, we see a conspiracy, a racist conspiracy. These things have to be true to some extent, because how else could he provide some type of reasoning why we should have a separatist mindset? It's all of us blacks, along with Africa, need to come together and do our own thing. That's a radical view in today's time period. You got to have a radical claim to support that. And that's what he's providing here. But we got to ask ourselves, audience, is he backing this stuff up? Or is this conjecture? Again, I'm not saying I disagree with all this stuff. I'm not saying some of this stuff may not even be true. But do we have anything really go off? Did anybody that he's talking about ever say this stuff publicly? Were they saying, like, hey, look, the government's trying to kill me?
Right.
How does he know? They don't know. They didn't know.
Yeah. Because why not kill Dr. Cosby? Why keep him alive? He's old enough to have died of natural causes. He's a recluse, right? Dr. Cosby just ain't out in the streets.
It'd be easy to get rid of him. He's in prison.
That's what I'm saying. Even before he was in prison, right? That took a whole lot to get him there. What I'm saying is, if he's really causing that much trouble, just get him up out of there. It ain't like Bill Cosby was out on the scene. He's a high profile character. Like, that dude is basically a recluse. He's not important to pop culture anymore. We don't see Bill Cosby on the internet on the internet every day. You could have just gave him whatever you gave Michael Jackson.
All right, we got the comment from Lamar. Lamar says, "LOL, we ain't got enough time for that. Proceed, LOL." All right.
Let's get to it.
All right, so y'all ready?
Yes, sir.
All right, let's go.
Do you know the vampire metaphor is very real in European high-class culture? They believe sex with children helps you live longer. Let me say that again. This is the vampire metaphor. In the vampire, the movies, what they do, they drink your blood. Okay? They do that too. But it is the young blood of the child, untouched, that will give you longer life. This is why they need so many children. This is why we got all these black girls going missing. Who is most likely to be sexually abducted in America? Black girl 12 to 17. Black girl 12 to 17. And right after them is the boys. They need the boys for the sodomy rituals. They need virgin black prepubescent boys for the sodomy rituals. And then they need the black girls for the rituals as well. And then after that, they kill them. And in many cases, they drink their brain fluid because they believe that the brain fluid of virgin children, when digested, gives you longer spiritual life.
And we learned something today.
The child sex ring is beyond.
And just sit back and be like, "Yep, I said that."
Yeah. Mic drop.
The foster homes are in it. The judges are in it. All the Department of Youth and Family Services are in it. Why do you think a certain number of black kids get taken from their families every year? Why do you think a certain number of black kids get abducted every year? If you got random abductions, there's no way it's the same amount every year. You feel me? That's systemic. Somebody is systematically making sure this many black kids get abducted, this many black kids get sexually trafficked. Because you got rich white males at the top of this who need our children at the bottom because they believe raping those innocent black babies will give them longer life on this planet.
Yeah, it was a report in Cleveland, Ohio, a couple months ago about
all the children missing it.
Hey,
Cleveland is a Atlanta. Remember the Atlanta child murder?
Hey, you gotta admit he was too cool on that right there.
Killed him.
Tell me he ain't do that just now.
Killed him. He dropped some knowledge.
Killed him off with that line.
Hey, you know what? And his interviewer is not equipped to even question that. He just asking questions that he already wrote down.
Yeah, his interviewer couldn't even pronounce philanthropic and Pan-African.
Hey, don't shame that brother, man. Help that brother, man.
Yeah, I'm not saying it to insult the young man. My whole point, and for those of y'all who didn't see the previous shows, Dr. Umar as intelligent as he is, my whole point always goes on platforms where he never gets challenged by
Yeah, he's not
anybody.
going on intellectual platforms at all. He's going on hip hop.
Now, whether you hate him or love him, when you're seeing Biden or Trump or Marcus Lamont Hill or Cornel West or Michael Eric Dyson or Larry Elder or Ben Shapiro, Dr. Jordan Peterson, all these personalities we see, even Andrew Tate nowadays, Papa Andrew Tate, these guys are being debated by other prominent people who are known for being sharp, known for being intelligent. So at least the questions they're being asked and the process of cross-examination is to a level of rigor that we can respect and go, this guy has been vetted thoroughly onto some level.
Yeah, Umar is counting on ignorance and black outrage. He's banking on that. And again, I'm not saying that these people are not intelligent, but what we're saying is he says a lot of stuff that's conjecture that has never been substantiated by him or really anybody else. It's just he's saying these things. You go on hip hop, and I listen. I watch hip hop platforms as well, but I watch hip hop platforms for hip hop. Go talk to somebody who does the same thing that you can. Go debate somebody who orates and who speaks and who understands the concepts that you, because a lot of this stuff, and here's my personal opinion. He spends a lot of these hip hop platform interviews explaining his concepts as opposed to exploring his concepts.
Or even
whereas it's like, yeah, if he were to come on something like even like this platform, we'd be like, we understand what Pan-Africanism is, so I don't need you to explain it. I need you to explain how everything that you said correlates.
And so again, I just want to say what you're saying a different way that I understand. So if you're going to have a dialogue with somebody or to teach somebody something, the first thing is they got to know what it is, right?
Correct.
And then you go and defend it. You can't defend it before you know what it is.
Correct.
The level of the interviews that he's doing are so rudimentary all the time. He never has to go past just saying what it is.
That's what I'm saying. They're just asking. They just wanting to know more about what he's saying as opposed to wanting to know what, like, explain what you're saying. Like, go in depth. He never goes into depth about his philosophies and principles.
And a justification. And again, I wouldn't expect him. Again, I've only seen him on one interview where he went and had people on his level, plus or minus, to contend with. It was on a Roland Martin show.
Well, whose fault is that, though? Is that Omar's fault, or is that the person who's actually interviewing him?
There's no way.
For that?
Both. Because I have a sneaking suspicion. And I'm gonna preface this by saying this is just my opinion. I don't know. I can't believe that only hip hop platforms are the ones reaching out to him to talk. But I think it also is easy for him to say something like, I don't want to do any show that's run by or supported by the white man, to avoid a lot of what we would consider his peers.
Yeah.
I think that's why he won't do something like Vlad. Because my whole thing is like, why has he done Vlad?
Yeah, he did Vlad. He actually did.
Yeah, he did Vlad one time, but him and Vlad got into it.
Yeah, Vlad. He didn't like the way Vlad was tying his videos. He didn't like the way his videos was titled. Y'all ready to get back into it?
Yeah.
Oh, you know, I'm sorry, Fresh.
We got Cap and Fax in the building. We letting them in or no?
Yeah, I'm putting it right now.
Longer life on this planet.
Yeah, it was a report in Cleveland, Ohio, a couple months ago about
all the children missing. Yeah, Cleveland is a test site. Atlanta, remember the Atlanta child murders? Atlanta is a test site. I think Chicago is a organ trafficking site, and I also think that you guys are a homicide site. Nobody's going to convince me that all these black men being murdered are being murdered simply over gang warfare and black on black hate. You feel me? I believe that there are people dressing up as African people. White
not showing the video.
It's going to come out just like the Purge movie. Just like the Purge movie.
They're
bringing in white ex-military cutouts to assassinate black people on the street. Purge movie. I believe that there are people
go back.
People murdered simply over.
I want the people to really hear this part.
That's like all the children.
Yeah, it was
this is so
poverty. Same thing that y'all probably deal with in Chicago.
Hold on.
In fact, right now, giving up. So
I'm not on my parents' health insurance anymore.
They got to pay us for that advertising.
That man said,
let me bring Kappa Facts in.
Yeah.
Kappa Facts
Cap.
back in the building. They say he didn't came up. He the name they bring up.
hey.
So I want to address with this part right here where he's talking about, he's getting ready to go into talking about a pretty wild conspiracy, y'all. I want audience to hear this really well because I really want to dissect this after he says it. So we're gonna jump right into it, but y'all take a listen to the detail and what he's saying here.
Hold on for a minute. Let me I lost the time. So just give me a few minutes and we'll get back.
Yeah, he just says, and here's my thing. I think even the interviewer, as a simple a question as why do you think that could require more depth into the accusations that he's making. I think Chicago is a test site. Oh, why do you think that?
Yeah.
As opposed to, you're not gonna be able to tell me that all these black murders are gang related. It's in the music, it's in the culture. We seen videos. Like, I'm not saying, I'm not even prepared to say that it's not. I'm saying, what are you basing that off of? And give it to us. What is your source? Why are you saying these things? That's like we saying that I think the sky is purple, and we go outside and look up and the sky is yellow. I might be right, but I would have to tell you like why I would say something like that. I would have to explain to you like how I got to that point, how I got to that conjecture, instead of just be like, listen, man, I'm telling you the sky is purple. That's it. What?
So while waiting for the video to cut back on, y'all, I just want to second what you're saying there. I want the audience to keep in mind there's a difference between somebody giving an educated opinion versus somebody saying what they know. We have to be to detect the difference. We have to know the difference.
Even if you say you know it, tell me how you know it.
Yeah, tell me how you know it.
That could lead to a fact.
Y'all, knowing is justified true belief. Justified true belief. What that means, justified. Remember in math class, they make you show your work?
Right.
They made you show your work because you could have looked at your classmates' numbers, to get the answer. You could have done other things to be able to get to the answer. So sometimes we have people that can do things in their head, math problems in their head. They'll do the math problem in their head and put the answer. Teacher would say, show your work. You wouldn't show your work, so you wouldn't get 100, but you wouldn't get a failing grade. But then once the problems got more complex and you couldn't do it in your head anymore, you need to know that formula.
The formula. Even to the point where it's not like I'm trying to show my work so you don't think that I'm cheating. Even to the point where it's saying you could put anything. How do I know you're right? Not even that you're cheating, right? The first scenario is contingent upon like you got the right answer, but I need to know how you got the right answer. Later on down the road, I really want to know, like, if we don't use a method, right? How do I know that what you wrote down is the right answer, regardless of unless you show me how you got to that point?
How do you know? I want to know how you know.
Yeah, how you know?
Because it's like when you're teaching your kids how to read. Kids may if you read the same book more than once, they know the words now because they know what it looks like.
It's memorization.
So now you're like, did they sound it out or did they just memorize the word now? I need to hear you do some hooked on phonics. That's what I need to hear you do. We can go back to the video.
All right, so y'all ready? I got it. All right, let's share. All right, let's get back to the video.
How much video we got left?
Go over about 45 minutes.
Damn. Let me shut up.
Maybe less than that. I gotta see. Nah, man, just keep cooking. Let me see where we at. All right, here we go. All right, y'all ready? Here we go.
We learned something today.
The child sex ring is beyond some sick Negro on the street kidnapping people, kids. This is government-backed, government-sponsored, government-created. The foster homes are in it.
Bluetooth disconnected.
All the Department of Youth and Family Services are in it. Why do you think a certain number of black kids get taken from their families every year? Why do you think a certain number of black kids get abducted? If you got random abductions, there's no way it's the same amount every year. You feel me? That's systemic. Somebody is systematically making sure this many black kids get abducted, this many black kids get sexually trafficked. Because you got rich white males at the top of this who need our children at the bottom because they believe raping those innocent black babies will give them longer life on this planet.
Yeah, it was a report in Cleveland, Ohio, a couple months ago about like
all the children missing.
Yeah,
Cleveland is a test site. Atlanta, remember the Atlanta child murders? Atlanta is a test site. I think Chicago is a organ trafficking site, and I also think that you guys are a homicide site. Nobody's going to convince me that all these black men being murdered are being murdered simply over gang warfare and black on black hate. You feel me? I believe that there are people dressing up as African people, white folks who they're bringing in. It's going to come out just like the Purge movie. Just like the Purge movie. They're bringing in white ex-military cutouts to assassinate black people on the streets of Chicago to reduce the numbers. You mean to tell me they got cameras all over Chicago?
Hey, why not black military ex-military cutouts?
For that matter. You have no physical description. Why do you have no leads on all these murders when half of Chicago is a damn surveillance police state? Because the government is killing us off. Do you realize black male organs, black female organs are some of the most prized organs in the world because we're the original people. So our organs damn near work with everybody. What is the one thing you need to live that you can't buy? Heart, kidney, liver, spleen. So since everybody been brainwashed to think that black Chicago is just self-destruction from the inside, why don't we encourage the effort? Send our own ex-military cutouts there overnight, 2 a.m. to 5 a.m. and kill as many black people as they can. We got all the organs we need. Nobody going to do no research. Nobody going to investigate. They're just going to think it's another gang killing. Do you see what I'm saying? It's easy to take a life in Chicago because they brainwashed the whole world into thinking it ain't nothing but drugs and guns and gangs. No, it's not. The government is killing these brothers and sisters in Chicago. You got a heart, and it just so happened your heart is the only heart that matched that rich white man in the suburbs of Illinois.
How would they know that?
Pay somebody $1 million to take you out and bring that heart, and the next thing you know, we read about how you got jacked at the gas station, filling up your car, getting you a bottle of orange juice, and they came out and robbed you, and you ain't want to give them the money, so you fought back and they killed you. That's a damn lie. That was an orchestrated hit for organs. It's happening all over America.
This mistake is costing Amazon Prime shoppers big. Are you still using Prime? Because at this
Hey, I know it doesn't correlate, but that white man popping up on that screen after he made that he went on that tangent is classic.
It is. That's classic.
About the damage drill community, drill music has done.
Hold on.
Drill and all of it.
And I'll make this short, but y'all, this guy just said that ex-military white folks are going to Chicago and killing blacks. We got to think about the level of conspiracy this is here. These folks got to go into a big city, the third biggest city in the country, commit murders with no witnesses, with the police force in their pocket, or every single police officer in this huge city has to be like, we know when they're in town, we just turn a blind eye.
In a place where you're not supposed to be if you don't know folks around there. So they are unfamiliar faces in a place where you can get popped for, regardless of how you look, for just being different.
When you got
in a well-armed city.
Yeah.
This Chicago we talk about. They got guns.
We got to think, we got activists in Chicago who are doing their best to combat gang violence. I've watched different documentaries. I've seen them talk on YouTube. I don't hear none of them saying it's some none of that stuff. Wouldn't they know? If I have a child who's in a gang violence and they get shot, I knew they were in a gang. I knew, like, I'm not crying because this is some kind of crazy murder that shouldn't have taken place. I'm crying because, hey, look, another young person dead.
Caught up in his lifestyle.
Yeah, exactly. And then if you cross-reference all these other cities, again, he has to make, for him to be the Messiah, for him to be the chosen one, the black revolutionary of all black revolutionaries, at least for modern times.
The one with the answers.
The one with all the answers. All of this stuff has to be true. It has to be true because a lot of black folks are living pretty decent. They have food. They're going out to eat. They're interracial dating. They're doing all this kind of stuff that they're doing at modern times. And you got to convince the people who are just swimming in plush luxury with Gucci and Louis and Jordans and forces on their feet. You got to convince them they're in slavery. And they need to be liberated ASAP. The government is out to get you. Don't you know?
They let you have all the money that you have.
So it doesn't make any sense. The amount of collaboration it would take for all that to be true. People to go to Chicago and kill blacks and stuff like that doesn't make any sense. And also,
and somehow convince the rappers to put it in the music.
Exactly. Still got to convince to put in music. And let's say this right here. Not from a government standpoint, because that would be wrong if the government was doing that, but from just a typical human being in Chicago, if the government was sending people to go kill gang members, and I'm just a citizen in Chicago, how offended am I really about that?
If I'm somebody who could possibly be robbed or murdered by an actual gang member, and you coming in to clean up the gang members, he didn't say gang members though. He said killing random black folk. But to your point, yes.
If you look at the age range of who's dying in Chicago, and when you look at the reports, it's gang violence by the news, by the activists, by the community center people. So that's the bulk of the people.
Let me play devil's advocate here though and say that those are military age men who, if the government decided they were going to do a hostile takeover, would be able to take up arms against them. What do you say against that?
I just want to make sure I understood it. So you got something?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I want to get Cap's opinion or thoughts on this, and I was just gonna say, the stuff he's saying about what's going on in the urban communities is almost like he's insulting those guys' intelligence. The guys that's in the streets that know what's going on.
Yeah,
insulting their intelligence. Like these are just some dummies. Yeah, like they don't know who they beefing with or who they at war with in the streets. But go ahead.
No white man killed my cousin. It was a black dude that lived 2 blocks away.
Yeah, that I went to school with.
Yeah, I seen it.
But you know how it go? I don't know how to.
I do.
Hey, don't do that to yourself. Don't do that to yourself.
Before I go to Cap, I want Vulcan or Fresh. I want y'all to read this to the audience. Oh, Vulcan, you go ahead because I remember you sending me this.
Who, me?
Yeah.
3 tendencies were strongly correlated with conspiracy ideation, which is the inclination to endorse conspiracy theories. They were perceiving threat and danger, relying on intuition, and having odd beliefs and experiences. I should read like the guy who's interviewing Dr. Umar right now, and being antagonistic and feeling superior. You can think of each as a pillar that supports conspiracy ideation and or is nurtured by it, and each pillar can be looked at in more detail.
Man, who wrote this? Probably a white man.
Yeah, probably a white man. They sent this article to us to confuse us and keep us from Dr. Umar's truth from the heavens.
Yeah, the Pan-African goddess.
Trying to convince us Dr. Umar ain't got the answers to today's problems.
You ain't got the answers. You ain't got the answer, conspiracy theory context.
You got anything, Cap, before we move on?
Well, I mean, there's a couple points on it, but, just one thing to throw in there, without taking too much of the time is it makes me think of what Thomas Sowell was putting out there and why I started listening to him. He was saying all that racism, segregation, I mean, that stuff had a point in time that it did happen, but at some point, money talks. So all this blocking blacks from certain areas and all the conspiracy theories that come in and all that, eventually some white man, eventually some people is going to want to make money off those people. And they don't care if you're black, Indian, Mexican, Asian. We got to put people in homes. We got to do what we got to do, to make this money. And so for me, it was always tough when you start getting into the conspiracies of the government, the FBI, and, they're orchestrating. There's white men that are dressed to look just like black guys, and us black guys in the hood wouldn't be to tell, if they were really white or if they were.
A drone from my homeroom.
Yeah, it's like they're bypassing all of our natural. Like, wait a minute, hold on. But
I can
to me,
I can tell by the way somebody walk if they're black or not. I can tell you black or not. That ain't no black person. That's a white man with ex-fed.
Yeah, I don't even know what that would look like. Be a white guy walking in there saying, "Yeah, man, that party was funky." We gotta be looking like, what timeline you from, man? Where'd you get your material from, man? Nobody says funky no more.
Yeah. He's like, oh, that outfit's tight. Nobody says type
yeah. Or even the word crunk is out of it now. But
hey, what you doing over there, Job Turkey?
Yeah, all right.
I'm about to
Let's get back
clown
to
you,
the video.
boy. But yeah,
Let's get back.
that, and last thing I'll say on it is to me it begs like a big question. I think in the Black community that has to be answered at some point in time is like, what school of thought is the biggest thing holding Blacks back? Is it the conspiracy theory, this Messiah with no real grounded truth ever really presented, or facts like Umar, who's saying that all these conspiracies, all these things, this is what's holding Black people back? Or, is it the type of Blacks that Umar is saying that aren't involved enough? Which one is it? And for me, I think it's more of like, the latter. It's like, no, I mean, the opportunity is there, but there's always a group of Black folks. They're on the Black Panther kick. I'm not gonna say they're out of times, but they just throw this stuff out there, and it's such a lure for Black people that would just eat it up. They just literally just eat it up, and they never move forward.
What you're saying reminds me of a comment that John McWhorter, I think his name was, made. What he was saying is that some people take the posture of the 60s and put it into the 80s or the 90s, or the posture of the 80s and put them into the 2023s. Times are changing and things are getting better in a lot of ways. Poverty, universal health care, all the different things. I mean, maybe not everything is getting better. I mean, like maybe the air quality is not maybe the best, but a lot of things the markers are showing that we're getting better in certain areas.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah,
we don't have to have this fight in the 2023 as we had in the 70s.
Or in the 60s or in the 50s, yeah.
Like, do we think sit-ins are going to be a good use of our time today? There was a time where sit-ins was very much a good thing to be doing.
It's prominent, and he covered it earlier in the interview, and I'm sure y'all talked about it already. About like having more Black teachers opposed to white teachers. But what's interesting, me like growing all the way up, and I was always considered to be the light skinned kid in Georgia. I was the red dude everyone poked fun at, and what was interesting is I found a lot more discrimination from Black teachers and Black people, than I got from white students and white teachers.
Those were ex-fed government plants that were doing that.
That's what Umar would say, but you see what I'm saying? But to me, it's just one of those things where like that Black on Black hate, I would say in today's time, and it's opinion based. Obviously, I don't have the statistics to prove it, but I think that Black on Black hate and crab barrel, I'm gonna pull you down so you can't get up, is a lot stronger than the white hate for Blacks in today's time.
Well, I will say this: the largest employer.
Hold on, Vulcan. Hold on. We gotta get back to the video. What's going on? What's up? It's gonna be quick.
Yeah, last comment I'm gonna make about this is that the largest employer of Black women, to my knowledge, is retail and the government. So Black women benefit tremendously from the government. That's one of their main employers.
Facts. All right, yeah, ready?
Yeah.
Drill is probably the most intense and self-destructive form of gangster rap, but it's all destroying us.
Right.
I wish that one day the Chicago artists, the Chief Keefs and the Little Durks and Common and Kanye, I wish they would convene some sort of a conference, not just for the gangs, because it ain't just the gangs doing this. You understand? I think sometimes the gangs can get a bad rap because they get blamed for crime that ain't even gang crime. But I wish that they would all come together, all those in Chicago with the influence. I wish they would come together and have a serious sit down with the gangs and all the other corner boy sets and see if they could put some order to the crime. Because see, here's the thing. Crime not going to stop because people can't find well-paying jobs. You see that? Crime is not going to stop until you have jobs that provide people with adequate pay and benefits to take care of their children. So bringing them together to stop the crime, that could be the goal. As a student of political science and criminology, I don't think that's going to happen. But you know what we can do? We could put some rules to the shit. You understand? Organize the crime like the Italians do. Organize the crime like the Chinese gangs do. Organize the crime like the Irish do. Why the hell we got kids getting hit? Why we got mothers getting hit? Why we got old women getting hit? Y'all can't put some rules to this shit so innocent bystanders ain't losing their life over y'all petty drama? I think there should be a conference in Chicago to at least organize the crime to reduce the violence.
We can't stand the white man, but you know what? He got a
lot
good
of
plan
Chicago
over
men
there.
are
Let's do
stubborn,
that.
and they feel like what we talk about can never happen. They feel like it's impossible.
Say that again, Fresh.
Say we can't stand the white man and the government that represents him, but they sure got a good plan over there. Let's do that over here. Come on, man.
That's cool.
And you know what? That bothers me because once upon a time, people said we would never get out of slavery. Once upon a time, when black people said we got to fight to end this, some black people laughed at them and said this is never going to end. So if you believe it, you can achieve it. They told Ida B. Wells she never stopped lynching. She did. They told Frederick Douglass black people never get the right to vote. We did. They told Dr. King you'll never go to a white hotel, restaurant, a coliseum. He did. They told Marcus Garvey Africa would never be free. He gave Africa the blueprint for independence, which came right after his death. You see what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. So we are a people whose whole history is about proving that the word impossible is a myth. Mm-hmm. Ride or die.
Now, can you help me break down though, like the psychological effects gangster rap has had on African American men, right?
The problem with gangster rap and why it's been so influential, gangster rap takes off in the decade of crack and AIDS. This is the mass incarceration of black fathers. The boys are fatherless, and into the void comes the gangster rappers as the role models. And let me be clear. As I said earlier, I don't want to scapegoat the gangster rappers because as much as they are to blame, professional black men are to blame. Because if the doctor doesn't leave the inner city of Chicago, if the school principal doesn't move out the inner city of Chicago, if the engineer, the politician, the business owner, the pastor, if they don't abandon our children, Little Dirk and Chief Keef can never get to them. And I'm not demonizing Little Dirk and Chief Keef, you understand? But I'm saying that if the black professional men never abandon our boys, rap would never have the deleterious effect on the consciousness of young black America as it does. So are the gangster rappers?
I want to address that point.
Partly and largely, but all black men have to be.
Speak on it.
So again, numerous times throughout what he's saying is he's mentioning things I don't necessarily disagree with, but things that we would need to have him put a little bit more meat on that bone. He's talking about black flight, if you will, a professional flight, when they took off out of the inner cities to go to the suburbs, to black professionals. But the thing is this, we don't know which one was better. When that black doctor, that black dentist leaves that community and goes to the suburbs, they're going to get a place with a higher property value. They're getting a place where there's less crime. They're going into better schools. That's generational wealth for them. That's networking for them and their family. The kids in that neighborhood become future leaders of this world, and when your son or daughter needs a loan to start a business, they just go talk to their friend up the street who's now the banker in that local community. So we'd have to quantify on one end which one was better. The blacks going to the suburbs and leaving the black community, quote unquote, as he's saying, and starting their journey in that other world where they're able to network and build things up and have higher property values. Is that better for them? Or is it better for them to stay in the hood where crime rate is up, the schools aren't as good? Do we know for sure? Can he say for sure that that was a bad move on their part to do that? I don't think he can really say that. How do we quantify that?
He definitely insinuates it, but that's why I think he like has a lot of faith in the black community when I think man. I think it's one of those things where he has too much faith in the black community, to be honest with you. Sounds completely horrible, but I guess you take what Tupac said. In my mind, I'm a blind man doing time, but it's my own kind. Stabbed since birth. And it's one of those things where, like, when he speaks about having our own policing and our own people governing.
You said the lyric wrong for sure. It's in they say,
how's it go?
Man, I should fear, but it's my own kind doing all the killing here.
Exactly. And so I'm saying if I'm more afraid of a black cop. If it's just black cops policing the neighborhood, I'm more afraid of them than other ones. And to me, it's just one of those things where, like, that black on black hate is strong. Oh, you think you're doing good, brother? You became a doctor? Oh, your daddy a doctor? I'm a police officer? Oh, okay, yeah. Come get in the back of this car.
Anything else? Go back to the video, what are you doing? You got something to say?
Yeah, we go. No. We can move on.
Blame. Because if we were really taking care of the boys in the community, gangster rap could have never took hold. You know why? We wouldn't let them listen to it. And we wouldn't let them make it. Gangster rap was created by fatherless black boys. And when I say fatherless, I don't mean they didn't have a father in their life. I'm saying they didn't have a father who was strong, aggressive, active, and making sure that you don't engage yourself into anything that would be destructive and not in the best interest of the black community. So although we look at gangster rap, it is black men in general who are failing out.
One last thing on it, because I mean, he's talking about like prominent black men in different roles leaving the community. Y'all think Umar live in the hood?
That's a good question. I don't know.
I
highly doubt it.
One thing that I want to cover about what he's talking about. Sorry, I think I lost my train of thought about the point. What was the last thing you mentioned?
People, strong black fathers not being active.
Oh yeah, so I do want to agree with him about that part. I do think we do.
I'm sorry, strong not fathers not being active, but strong black fathers being more active.
Yeah, so I do want to piggyback on what he said. That I do agree with him that when you look at the rise of hip hop, especially gangster rap, is right on the back of mass incarceration and things of that nature. So there was no strong male role models at that time period. So
Bill Cosby was starving during that time.
So, and saying that, I do agree that the issue we have now, and I'm taking it a little bit further than just the black-white thing, but I do notice with a lot of black women specifically, and other women as well, as hip hop becomes more powerful, what they define as masculinity is really like toxic masculinity. There's that quote that Dr. Jordan Peterson talks about that I always forget how to say it, but reckless fearlessness. What's the other one?
No, he said people with really said
reckless
women.
Fearlessness was the other one.
Women. He said women can't tell the difference between fearless competence versus fearless recklessness.
Yeah,
a lot of people is not able to distinguish the two. They be able to distinguish the two.
Yeah, and a lot of guys, you hear a lot of these rappers now, they're 40, 50, 60 years old. Jay-Z, Snoop, all of these guys are talking about their former lives. Snoop Dogg said he was living his life in fear. Now, at one point in time, Snoop Dogg was considered one of the most masculine men on the earth. He was a gangster. He was charming. And so the thing was that a lot of people looked at him as an idea of masculinity. Now he's in his 40s and 50s. He's saying, well, in his 50s, he's like, I was afraid. I joined the gang because I was afraid. I was in there hanging out on death row and I was afraid. But he was still in those environments because of peer pressure and because money was more important than his own safety. That's not what we would call masculine characteristics. It's not masculine to not want to protect your communities from drugs, from violence, from gang violence, protecting your young children, protecting the women in your community, the elderly in your community. These are the things that you want to protect. But now within the black context, even women who are professionals, they have this thing they can't even explain for guys with a street persona. And I want to say that because I'm not some of this, but I don't. He was acting like he wasn't street. I don't mean a guy who actually from the streets because at our age we wouldn't know where somebody was really from. We wouldn't know. It's the persona, how they act, how they carry themselves, and a lot of people are drawn to that. A lot of men are drawn to that too. I don't just mean in a romantic way. They just find that more masculine. DMX was considered a very masculine man, but DMX,
as far as leaders,
couldn't control his emotions. When you see him on those shows with that one lady on there who does the counseling stuff, he couldn't control his emotions, yelling at his son for no reason. Dame Dash the same way, and I'm a fan of Dame Dash, and about when it comes to entrepreneurship and stuff like that. But the thing is that these men can have a hard time controlling their emotions. That's not a masculine quality. Yeah. And my point is saying this is that hip hop gave license in a lot of ways, especially gangster hip hop, for men to have these emotional tension, have these emotional tension, and back them up with violence.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, reckless fearlessness. Yeah,
that reckless fearlessness.
Yeah.
So I think that that's the part that Dr. Umar is making that I definitely agree with, and I'm still seeing effects of it today when you meet people who are professionals, and you see what kind of men they're attracted to. It's guys with that street persona. They prefer at a certain age you want to be buttoned up in a suit, but at the same time you still want them to have that. You're never gonna see him fight a day in your life. But if he talks about it, like I remember Steve Harvey was, doing some kind of NFL, trophy show or whatever, and he was like, "I kill everybody in this room over my woman." I'm like, what? Where did that come from? Like, you get some brownie points because you can kill people? Does that make you? Is that showing your love for her? And a lot of women, they look at that and go, "Oh, he loves me," because he'll kill everybody for me.
Reckless fearlessness, right there.
That reckless fearlessness.
That's a good example. So yeah, quote of the day. A lot of people can't tell the difference between fearless competence versus fearless recklessness.
And I want to define that fearless competence really quick before we get back into the video. Fearless competence is somebody who sees the landscape. They have a healthy skepticism about what's going on. They're cautious. They're not being haphazard. They're being cautious because they see what's going on. They see the danger that's there. They're projecting it out and extrapolating from one thing to another. And they realize, it's best to move in accordance with this way. It's best to avoid that situation because it can get out of hand too fast and I won't be able to control it. For somebody who just jumps in, they call it back in the old Western days, shoot first and ask questions later. And as a community, we tend to think that is masculine. We tend to think that is true leadership. That's true fearlessness. That's the kind of fearlessness that people put in prison, have people being bullied, have the wrong people given the platforms, because we look at that as I remember DMX was on a show, I think it was Breakfast Club, and he was talking about, somebody was saying, "Hey, do you mess with so and so?" He's like, "I pop a nigga for him. He was showing his love for somebody by saying, "I'd kill somebody on his behalf." And when he explains it, he says, like, as long as he didn't say anything. So you could tell with DMX, it wasn't like this moral thing, like this guy is trying to hurt somebody. He wouldn't even really know what the issue was. The guy could have been in the wrong, and if he would have solicited DMX's services to have somebody pop, he would probably have done it. I'm sure we've all had friends like that growing up. They don't care if you're right or wrong. They're just looking for a brawl. They're looking for a fight, looking to hurt somebody. And they show their love by hurting others on your behalf. Really on their behalf, but that's another topic. So I would just say that we got to be mindful of the people who come across as fearless because they're going to jump into any type of dispute, whether be it justified or not. And we look at that as somebody who we should be looking after. That's courageous. That's not courageous.
Fearlessness and courageousness is not the same thing. Not synonymous.
And that's just to go on, and that quote is just to go along to, that quote is just to go. Hold on for a minute.
One last thing before we start the video, though, I'm just curious for the panel, like, have y'all ever actually heard of a black utopia that Umar suggests when you think about the ancestors and these people of old? Where is this black utopia where it was just a thriving community, with their spiritualism, with their etc., whatever you want to attach to that? Can y'all think of any places like that?
Depends on what you describe as utopia, but what I would consider a utopia, no.
Well, I'm saying like what Umar's saying, like, I had to go back to the ancestors and this and that, and I want to create a school with, these young black kids. They're learning, the ancient stuff from our ancestors and these teachings and this and that, all this pro-black stuff that he's grabbing, and I think he's kind of mixing and matching from different places. I'm thinking like, where is this? Where's this place at?
Well, he would argue places like Black Wall Street and other places like that, right? That could be examples. Am I coming out clear? Y'all can hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, well, when he says the ancestors, just to clarify, that's a spiritual practice, right? I haven't seen a lot of those. Oh, hold on. I haven't seen a lot of those practices practice on the Eastern Africa, but I see a lot of that going on West Africa. So praising the ancestors for him is for motivation. It goes to that to be motivated for his so-called mission that came from the God above, in his words, right? So just keep that in mind. That's a spiritual practice. That's where he goes to get motivated. Not look at ancestral worship is just praying to a community of the dead. That's what that is. This is where I get my energy
Black
at.
Panther movie.
Yeah, basically.
But
Yeah,
I don't know
so,
if that, is that I don't know if that's going to address what Capra Fax was asking about, but
no, he said, "Where is this place?" When he goes, praise the ancestor, and worship the ancestor. That's just a spiritual practice. They get motivated to, I guess, bring forth a community that I guess is what Cap is saying that we haven't seen. So
Yeah,
it's ideal.
because
It's ideal.
ultimately, all these principles and beliefs that you're deriving to make all these grand points, I'm thinking like, has there been any real results in this stuff? And I mean, you can say Black Wall Street, but I mean, how long was that actually even a thing? Like,
Yeah, so you're looking for proof of concept.
yeah,
That
like,
this
is
is
there
even
any
something we should be pursuing.
exactly? Is there any
yeah.
long-lasting results in this stuff?
Well, yeah. Well, let me piggyback on that too, because the reality is this: even if we were to have that paradise, we still live in the midst of a world of the wilderness. So the thing is that there have been civilizations like look at the Native Americans that were over here. Once bigger guns came around, that if it ever was a paradise, which it wasn't, but let's say it was a paradise, maybe for some civilizations it may have been smaller civilizations. It wasn't a paradise once a bigger power structure got there. So if you would imagine there's this black paradise in what way? In military? Because if not, China might say, I see that land. It'd be ashamed if somebody discovered
it. Someone discovered it.
So the thing is, you got to fight with China. You got a Ukraine and Russia war going on right now. We live in a government that's so powerful, y'all, that literally two governments are fighting, and we haven't discussed it in all of our shows yet. They're not coming over here.
They're definitely not coming over here. And even if we are able to carve out our own piece of America, are we expecting America when it comes to situations like that? Are we expecting them to help out after we told them to kick rocks and we ain't trying to hear nothing what they talking about? They be like,
Depends who
man,
the president is, but yeah.
matter of fact, if we being honest, as corrupt as the American government, as corrupt as folks like Umar saying the American government is, I don't see why they wouldn't just tell China to come over here and wipe us off the land.
Yeah, because they know China will be a lot worse. They know China will come over here and we all be speaking Mandarin in no time. And no more of these interviews, Dr. Umar. We done with that. You're gonna work in this warehouse. You know what I'm saying? You look dusty. So China ain't playing that. Putin ain't playing that. The Nigerian kings over there ain't playing that. And the Nigerian government ain't playing that. You can't just talk about Nigeria like that, like it ain't nothing. I'm gonna get you up out of there.
All right, y'all ready to get back into it?
Let's go.
All right, let's move on, fellas. All right.
Our children. You got young men coming out of Cook County Jail every day. Do we have a program to socialize them, bring them back into the streets of Chicago? Do we have a way to get them a job? Do we take them to some sort of a socialization process where they know how to relate to their children's mother, relate to their children, relate to their mother, relate to the community? Do we give them some type of anger management course or conflict resolution seminar? What are black men doing for black men? And nobody gonna help us, because let us be honest, we are the most undesired people in this country. Not the damn Arabs, not the Taliban, not the Mexican gangs, not the immigrants. No, the most undesired person in America is the black man. So if we don't come together and save ourselves, we won't be saved.
And on the flip side of that coin, of the gangster rap, nowadays the women are emerging, with a real big impact on the rap game now. But a lot of their lyrics are, vulgar, sexual related.
I don't like it.
Right.
I don't support it. Obviously, Sister Sukihana and I are friends, and we have a line of communication there. I know where she stands, and she definitely knows where I stand. And my hope is, with the level of intelligence that I know her to have off the camera, I'm hoping that one day she will turn the corner, because I think a sister like Sukihana has a lot of potential. I think she could do a lot of good, especially with our young girls, especially someone who has went from this level of art to come to this level of activism. You feel me? So I'm hopeful that she will turn that corner sooner than later. But gangster rap is nothing more than the exaggeration of the stereotypes white people have always held about black people since the beginning of time. What was the stereotype about the black woman on the plantation? She was a Jezebel. sexually promiscuous. And what do our gangster rap women do? They push a message of sexual promiscuity. They're reinforcing stereotypes of black women that are 4 centuries old. Look at the black men. What is the stereotype? All they want to do is have sex, smoke, drink, kill each other, and buy expensive European goods. And what do the gangster rappers push? Exactly that. And that's why I call hip hop the minstrel show of white America, because everything white America wants to believe and does believe about black people, they give it to our rappers to push it.
Mm-hmm. And they promote it.
And they promote it like crazy.
With such excitement.
And they're hypocrites. Because if you tell me this is the only thing you can rap about, because this is what you live, why did you move out your neighborhood? Most rappers do not live in their neighborhood. They move. And I'm not against that. But don't be celebrating this kind of life if you left it behind the minute you had enough money to do so. Does that sound like somebody who proud? Why are you still rapping about a lifestyle that you no longer participate in? You in a white suburb, send your kids to a white private school. You got private white security, but you pushing this message of bust your gun in the ghetto. Don't worry about who get hit. You understand that? Kill him, kill this one. Weed, crack, sell. You don't live it no more, my brother. If you don't live it no more, but you still telling our kids that you do, doesn't that make you an artistic hypocrite? Stop saying you only rap about what you see. You don't see that shit no more because you don't live it no more. So why are you still pushing it? Because the Jewish media conglomerates make them do it. Gangster rappers are the field slaves.
Do we got to do
no, we ain't got time. Hey, they already know my position on that. I've been saying, but we all know as a culture they fake.
Okay. Vulcan, you don't want to add? You want to wait till another show or what?
Yeah.
Vulcan, I can't hear you. Oh, he burned.
Yeah, I think one of the points that he made earlier that I thought was worth mentioning is when he was talking about I lost my train of thought again.
Tragic.
Yeah.
All right, well, y'all want to get back to the video?
He ain't getting enough blood to his head, man. Unbutton that shirt, man.
He said,
I wanted to address a point that he was making, but I wanted to finish it, and I lost it now.
All right, let's get back to it.
It'll come back to me.
All right, y'all ready? Oh man, I didn't. 127, 127. There we go.
But don't be celebrating this kind of life if you left it behind the minute you had enough money to do so. Does that sound like somebody who proud? Why are you still rapping about a lifestyle that you no longer participate in? You in a white suburb, send your kids to a white private school. You got private white security, but you pushing this message of bust your gun in the ghetto. Don't worry about who get hit. You understand that? Kill him, kill this one. Weed, crack, sell. You don't live it no more, my brother. If you don't live it no more, but you still telling our kids that you do, doesn't that make you an artistic hypocrite? Stop saying you only rap about what you see. You don't see that shit no more because you don't live it no more. So why are you still pushing it?
Could you pause it real quick?
Media conglomerates make them do it. Gangster rappers.
Sir.
You know, so for me, like, I'm thinking if the interviewer was to ask Umar this question, so and establish on Umar has a very strong bias towards white people and thinking that there's this conspiracy theory out there against blacks, right? Well, when you think of just like money being the motivation, like when I listen to what he's just saying, the reason why I look at a black rapper or any rapper at that continue to rap about things that plague his community is because, hey, I'm getting bread off it. I'm making money, you know? And so, but to me, that same principle as far as what will make someone actually break against the culture, like what someone should do, or what we would think they should do for their people, you know, what will make someone break, you know, go against that and go against the grain of that will be money. Well, white people in the same way, in this conspiracy theory, he doesn't think, I wonder if he thinks that same principle wouldn't apply. In other words, like you have a white guy who culturally his granddaddy, his great-granddaddy, his great-granddaddy, let's say he bought into this conspiracy theory of misleading blacks, right? But if he was actually going to be making substantial money but not saying the same thing his great-granddaddy and daddy and before said, I'm wondering if Umar would say that, like, you know, that does happen more often than not, or if it doesn't. If that makes sense. You get what I'm saying?
Panel, y'all got something y'all want to comment?
In other words, if money motivates the black man to be a coon and go against his own people, does money motivate the white man to be a coon towards his own people in this conspiracy theory?
I don't think that Umar would say that. But I think in a world where we're talking about if we're in the world that Umar is painting, money is kind of the only power that we have. We don't actually have as black people real palpable power and influence. I think the white man you're talking about understands power and influence is more valuable than money in the current climate, really in any climate. So to answer your question, I don't think Umar would say that. I don't think he would agree with that. Would I ask him to tell me why? Yeah, why he wouldn't agree with that? Because I highly doubt he will put the white man he's talking about on the same platform or in the same circumstances that we are that he's claiming that we are. Because
I want to jump in right quick. Cap, are you asking, are people that's committing these racist acts motivated by money? Just the same way as black people committing atrocity against their own community, they motivated. All these rappers are motivated by money.
Yeah, I'm saying, like, for instance, it's been often noted, and I think Umar's saying the same thing. Like, these black rappers will take these millions of dollars, but be a plague to the community. I'm saying, like, if you had, let's say, a white guy who was a member of the KKK, there's an agenda, to go against blacks. But hey, if I don't go against these blacks, I can make millions of dollars by selling these blacks the homes. I'm saying, is Umar saying that's a non-factor? That whites aren't motivated by money in the same way that blacks, who he would label as a coon selling his people for money, are motivated.
Okay.
Is ultimately what I'm trying to say.
Okay.
That's what blows the whole conspiracy up to me.
Okay.
I'm thinking, like, money still talks. No, I mean,
yeah.
And so if I'm the interviewer, I'm thinking that's the question I'm throwing at. I'm like, this is where I feel like this all blows up at, because I've known white guys that would sell out their own brothers for money, just like I know black guys that would sell out their own brothers for money. So I'd be curious what Umar would actually respond to something like that.
I bet he'd say something about the overall agenda. I think to answer that on the singular, on an individual, from an individual perspective, I mean, we know those situations, but we're talking about government funded, more establishment funded or motivated folks who have a larger agenda. They're getting enough money, is what I'm saying, for what they're doing on top of power and influence. Plus, if we talk about the government who's squaring us, I think they squared us the same as they squaring poor white people.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess if at the end of the day, money is the motivation. I think maybe if we're prescribing to what Umar is saying, then suppressing African Americans is a nice side gig, if you will.
Which I would agree with.
Yeah. I don't know. Maybe Enos clip this and send it to old Umar.
I think it's thrown on the spot. Umar wouldn't even be ready for that question. That's what I think.
All right, for the sake of time, let's go ahead and get back into it if y'all don't mind. You got anything else you want to say? No? All right, let's get into it.
are the field slaves of the European Jewish music plantation.
Show that. Now, when I was doing my little research, I came across a video that talked about, it was a podcast that talked about how they invited you on to co-host with Charleston White or debate or something.
I didn't hear you. What was that?
He always sits back in that resolute way when he makes a point that he thinks is just so fire.
Killed him. Killed him.
Something like that. And you respectively declined.
Yes, I did. I don't have anything against the brother Charleston White. I don't believe I belong on a platform with him. Okay. As you can see, my message is very much about the best interest of the community. It's about saving our children, our men, our women. It's about building schools, which I'm actively doing. Okay. I don't believe I need to be on a podcast with someone who has disrespected our deceased, with someone who has said things that many people interpreted as being supportive of rape, as someone who has, done some things that many people would consider deplorable and unforgivable. The messages are not the same. The missions are not the same. The work is clearly not the same. Clearly not the same. Now, he says he's a community activist. I don't know what he's doing. I can't speak to that. But you're damn sure ain't done in these streets what I've done. You understand? I'm the most influential school psychologist in American history, hands down. I save more black kids from prison and special ed than any other psychologist, educator, or person you can name. Like I said, I'm not knocking it. But whatever you're doing, it don't compare to what I'm doing. I'm just thinking, world, sometimes these guys go out of their way to reduce those who are credentialed and expert in their field and put us on the same level as someone from the community who simply has an opinion. And don't get me wrong, I'm humble. I'll bust it up with anybody. But with my 6 degrees, my credentials, my achievements and accomplishments in life, what I'm doing to serve our people, you're not just going to bring anybody in with me and say, y'all going to have a head-to-head. No, sir. We can't have a head-to-head because he's not on my level in that way. You feel me? And because of the shock value, because he operates on shock value. I don't operate on shock value. You ask me questions, I give you my honest answer as a scholar, not a YouTuber. I'm not a YouTuber. I don't have a YouTube. You see what I'm saying? I might be the king of YouTube, but I don't have a YouTube. You're not going to take it to the table and sensationalize it and trivialize it by bringing this person on set who's liable to say anything. You understand? I'm not going to sit there and you come crooked out your mouth, which he's known to do. That's just going to cause conflict. All for what? So you can get views and likes and clicks and snaps. I'm not into that shit. You see what I'm saying? And for me, it was disingenuous for the guy to say what he said, because that was a private conversation. You asked me for the interview.
Right.
Cool. Let's do the interview. Then you come back a couple weeks later and say, can we bring him on there? I'm not feeling due. Not to mention, he's made several repeated disrespectful comments about me. Okay. So you want me to sit down with somebody who don't know me and has disrespected me plenty of time? Who the fuck you think I am? You see what I'm saying? If he never disrespected me, I still wouldn't have wanted to do it because he's a loose cannon and I don't really rock with his format. You see what I'm saying? I'm somewhere else with it. Don't get me wrong. I like to clown around and joke and all that too, but there's levels I don't cross. I don't think he has levels he don't cross. And because of that, I don't think we should be seated together. Now, if you're doing work in the community, I salute you, brother. Keep doing your work. If it's meant for our roads to cross on some activism type shit, we can do that. But debate, you can't debate me. I'll take a quote from John Henry Clark. He said, I only educate people. Excuse me.
Can we pause it
debate right here? All others I educate. I can give you an education, bro.
I want to pause it because I want to do this quote that he's going to give. He's going to go into its own separate category. I want to just the Charleston White part. Anybody want to hit it first? Shout out to Ray J.
No, it's just more of the same thing. Okay, like it's more of the same stuff. He's contradicted himself because he said he's humble and he'll bust it up with anybody, and then right after that he say, with all my credentials and my 6 degrees, and we don't belong the same. I'm like, okay, so what are you saying? Either you are humble or you're not humble, and you won't bust it up with anybody.
Yeah, but for me,
to his point, Charleston White, and I'm just kind of, this is my last thing. To his point, as loose of a cannon as Charleston White is, he still got the same goal. Just on opposite sides of the spectrum, if you will. He's still community minded. He just has different techniques and styles.
So so for me, I think the main thing is I would agree if I was in his position, even in my position now, I would not do a show with Charleston White. I wouldn't do it because he is liable to say anything. And I'm a fan of Charleston White in many ways. I do agree with a lot of his stances, and I appreciate his contribution to the overall betterment of the black community as far as snitching and calling out people who are supposed gangsters and empowering the community to be to stand up against bullies. I think that's great work. His work that he has been doing in the community that I've seen online is spectacular. I don't know who's done more work in the community out of Dr. Umar and Charleston White. I can see on both sides. I mean, Charleston White's has some pretty interesting accolades in that regard, dealing with the federal government and the work he's done with sex trafficking and stuff like that. Dr. Umar's school to prison pipeline, his work with ADHD and black boys being diagnosed with special ed and stuff like that. All those things are amazing in its own work. I don't know what's about even comparing the two together. I wouldn't do the platform because Charleston White's a loose cannon and he does operate off sensationalism, even more so than Dr. Umar does. But Dr. Umar is a sensationalist himself. This interview is definitely a point to fact, but I do think that those two don't need to be on the same platform. I don't hear Charleston White advancing ideas to the level that would warrant sharing this space with Dr. Umar. There's better people we could put with Dr. Umar to be able to get a more interesting conversation, a more helpful, constructive conversation.
I think it'd be an interesting conversation.
No, I said it'd be interesting.
I don't think it would be intellectually stimulating, but I think.
Yeah, you're right.
I think they could swap ideas, because if you listen to Charleston White, a lot of the stuff that he says or does is essentially like he says it's a character. Y'all wasn't listening to him when he had a bow tie on. He was going in front of congressional members and senators and dealing with it the right way. He was like, the community wasn't trying to hear him. As soon as he started talking and acting like he was acting, now all of a sudden he can get his message out there. To that point, he does operate off sensationalism. He is a loose cannon, but I think that's part of his character. And whether or not he will suspend that character to have a conversation with Umar doesn't mean that he can't. Doesn't mean I don't think that it won't be an interesting conversation.
Yeah.
I think he would challenge Umar though, and have enough credentials to be able to do so.
Yeah, I just don't think he would challenge him in a way that's going to be like you already said, intellectually stimulating. I mean, he can do that. He has the intelligence to do that. I just have no guarantees he would take that approach to it. And I only would want to do that to diminish Dr. Umar's platform that hasn't been violent or disrespectful or overly crude and graphic and lewd. He hasn't done that. So I can see why he wouldn't want to bring somebody on that has that proclivity at times. We can go back into the video.
You didn't want to address. Did you want to address the quote, John Henry Clark quote, or you just want to go ahead?
Yeah, I wanted to stop it there before he got into the quote and then his explanation of the quote.
He actually said it. I'm gonna rewind it back.
Well, he got the quote, but he's getting ready to go further into the quote or his point.
I only debate he said, we can do that, but you can't debate me. I'll take a quote from John Henry Clark. He said, I only educate people. Excuse me. I only debate my equals. All others I educate. I can give you an education, but ain't gonna be no debate. We not on the same level. And the problem with the social media world is they like to put us all on the same level. So I be able to tell people, I'm not that guy. I'm not him. I'm not him. Look at my body of work. It's more than videos, bro. What do they do when they off YouTube? They don't do shit. So you're not going to put me on a level with these guys. We are completely different. When I die, I'm going to be written into the history books for the things I've done. And I'm not even done yet. When I die, these other people are going to be written into the history books for shit because they ain't done nothing. So you're not going to make us equal because we're not. No disrespect to him, but I'm not sharing space. First of all, I don't even like to lecture with other people. You feel me? So just to show how it's not personal against dude, I don't even like to lecture with other people. If I'm scheduled to speak in Atlanta or Miami or Houston, and I'm thinking it's just me, and the organizers of the event bring me him, bro, you can have him on stage, but you're not having him with me. Well, Dr. Umar, we thought he'd be a good match. He's not a match because he's not on my level. You're not going to give my platform. You feel me? You're not going to give my audience to somebody who's a hater or somebody who's a scammer or somebody who's an opportunist or somebody who's not fighting for black folks. So this is not just the YouTube world where I don't share space. If you notice most of my lectures, 95% is me alone. I've shared the stage with David Banner. I've shared the stage with Dr. Claude Anderson. That's really about it. You feel me? I'm not sharing my stage with nobody else because they're not on my level. People wanted me to share the stage with all types of guys in the country. Bro, what works have they done? What institution are they building? You're not going to put them on my level because they don't belong there. They got to earn that shit. You want to sit next to me, you're going to earn that shit. And you're not going to earn it by running your mouth on YouTube. I want to see evidence that you are doing real works in these streets. And until you do that, we not tag teaming. I don't need to tag team with nobody. What I need to tag team for? I ain't been tag teaming. I'm good. Y'all need me. I don't need y'all. Leave it there.
That's a bar. I agree.
That's
I
a
like the way
bar.
that you stand for something, especially
Yes.
I
in
want to
that
see him
world.
with Killer Mike.
That's a bar.
Y'all want to end it right here? Y'all want to end it right here?
Yeah, we get it right here. Like, so who? I guess anybody want to tag that first and also do their.
I just want to throw a comment out there. I think Umar and Killer Mike will be an interesting little conversation.
Why they got to? Why got to be a little conversation?
I don't know how many people tune in for Killer Mike, but you know, I feel like he's one of the voices when you hear it, you listen to it.
That's a fact.
Especially the album he just put out.
I still haven't heard it yet.
He got some pop culture cachet right now. He relevant.
Yeah,
I've always respected him in the game, Killer Mike.
Yeah, that album was tough.
Yeah,
probably the album of the year.
The intro was fire, man.
Yeah, I still haven't heard it yet. One thing I do want to say about what Dr. Umar was saying about this, Henry Clark quote that I hear a lot of guys using. It's just not. I'm not a fan. I'm not a fan because anybody can erect themselves at some point in time and say, "I have arrived at this pillar as the lotus of all things related to social, economic, political, theological, points, and so none of y'all are on my level, so I only will teach." If everybody walks around like that because they think that they're at that level, this arbitrary level, this invisible level that you hit where you don't have to put your ideas up against other people's ideas and test your theories out and have people critique you, whenever you get to that level, it's like, how do you know you're there? But now we have to accept you at this level and realize, okay, he's not going to debate us anymore. He's past that point. Cults do that. Again, cults do that. Superstar pastors do that kind of stuff. Try to say, hey, look, it says this right here. No, young brother, wait till you get more experience. Wait till you get more wisdom. That's never a good thing. You should never be beyond criticism. You should never be beyond having to debate an issue out. We don't have time to debate everything out. I'm not saying you debate with everybody either. But the thing is that when he's saying things like, I only debate my equals, all else I teach, he already said earlier that there's nobody that can debate him. Nobody's on his level. So at this point, we just shut up and listen to him.
What we've been doing.
I don't disagree with that. I would say for the most part, but just being like on a fan level of top thinkers in different debate categories, like I'll throw out a name like James White is someone who's a big prominent Christian debater, and he used to always like tick me off when he debated a nobody. Because there were just you really saw just the difference of levels as far as like how they're able to like verbalize different points and put things together, and how someone's just stays on kind of like elementary basic things. You're thinking like, why is James White debating this guy? It doesn't make sense. This guy doesn't even really understand what it means even to debate. And so on that level, I can see like the point he's making. And going back to what Fresh was saying to me, I look at it versus Charleston White wouldn't be intellectually stimulating. I wouldn't even watch it, to be honest with you.
I'd watch it because it's like a man's Atlanta Housewives probably, but so I'm not gonna sit there and say I would watch it. But
I watched T.I. and Umar before I watched Charleston versus Umar.
Here's my thing, and I'm taking it outside of our individual perspectives, because that's why I made the point. It wouldn't be intellectually, like we wouldn't want to watch it because it wouldn't stimulate us in the ways that we want to be stimulated. But would it be a hey, come on, man. Would it be Would it be I don't even want to say productive. Would it be a good conversation? I think it would be. But we're talking about for the masses, for the people. I don't know that Dr. Umar will be able to dance on Charleston White, because Charleston White is going to say what he's going to say. So while Dr. Umar is saying stuff like I wouldn't talk to him, I wouldn't debate him, I would teach him. That's not who Charleston White is. And Charleston White actually has, because he's saying, show me your works. Charleston White got credentials in that space.
Yeah.
He has actual accolades in that space. So Umar can't little boy him in that space.
I think they're the same age.
Right. To that point, would I want to watch it because it's not going to sound or look or feel like something that will entertain me or that I would be interested in? No. Intellectually. Because like Capper Facts was saying, like it's gonna sound stupid. But would it actually be a conversation? Are there interesting and valuable perspectives and points that could be made on each side? I think it can.
They gonna box.
They would need the right mediator, because do you think Charleston White would even? I don't think he has I don't think he'd come up with the right questions.
I disagree. I'm gonna tell you why. One topic I would like to see them debate: what's more a threat to Black society? Is it, Black people, Black on Black crime, and the stuff that's going on? What should we prioritize more of our focus on? The stuff that's we're doing to each other, or white supremacy? I would like to see Charleston White and Umar debate that issue, though.
I agree.
But I don't think Charleston White will word it the way you just worded it, though, is what I'm saying. They would need a good mediator. If he could, then I agree with you, but I would think they would need a good mediator that's going to like flush that out.
Because he has said things that, the gangs are more dangerous than white supremacists, or it made statements, or actually made statements that they are probably more dangerous than the slave masters for back in the day. So, he has said similar things before. So
he operates off sensationalism just like Umar, so they could both possibly question each other's sensationalist comments.
Mm-hmm.
Say, hey, why do you think that? Where did you get that information from? What do you mean by that? Please expound on that. Obviously, I don't think Charleston White is saying stuff like that, but they can ask each other questions. He gonna say, "Nigga, what is you talking about?"
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, especially if he's feeling like somebody is belittling him, he is gonna say some things.
Yeah, and then when Umar's going on his rant, channeling the old ancestors and conspiracy theory, this, that, and this, I don't get it from Charleston that he's the type of guy that's going to call him out on that. I think he's going to kind of be lullabied just by just the speech and the compassion in his voice when he's saying it, or the confidence. That's why I say you need a good mediator.
Yeah. Somebody gonna say, Charleston White, don't be taken in by that man. Fire on that man.
So, Mr. Charleston, is it the gangs or is it the FBI? You need a mediator who's gonna be, in there asking them questions like that.
Yeah,
Charleston White, is Dr. Umar full of smoke and mirrors? Is he full of crap? What are your thoughts?
Mm-hmm. That's why I say Killer Mike, because I don't think Killer Mike will be shunned like that, and I think that'd be a very interesting conversation to listen to and to hear.
Killer Mike and Dr. Umar, or Killer Mike and Charleston White?
Probably both, to actually be honest with you, but more so with Umar.
Really? It seemed like they would say the same thing. They would probably agree with most things.
I don't get that Killer Mike goes so deep into the conspiracy theory and Black ancestors and roots and all that kind of stuff as the answer. I think he has more of a kind of approach of as far as just like, it's not that we have to go back to the ancestors. We got to start voting. We got to start doing this. Mm-hmm. He'll take it outside of like the actual just being Black, and I would say logical steps that need to be taken.
Yeah, the solution at home.
Mm-hmm. Rather than going back to Africa.
Which, as funny as it is, Why Umar hasn't? I don't think Umar wants to go back to Africa. I don't think. I think Dr. Umar wants to somehow get a piece of America just for black people.
Yeah, he did say that.
And to that point, like that's unrealistic. Who's gonna?
Yeah.
How are you gonna get that?
Yeah, I think I heard him say something similar. I know they was off. He said it was certain African countries that was offering him to build a school over there, and he said he just couldn't do it. I forgot what his reasons was, but yeah. So yeah, that's
No,
I think that's go ahead, Cap.
yeah, I was just gonna say, not to mention, I think he's kind of really I can't say misled, but I think just overly eager or faithful in a certain ideology, because I would say to a large extent, black people do have it made in a place here already.
Mm.
You know, there's a guy named Dinesh D'Souza. He's from India, and he speaks about like what makes America so great. And I don't know if you guys ever seen Slumdog Millionaire, where you see like if in India there's a whole caste system there, and what makes America so appetizing to someone from there, and even from Asia and etc., is that you can actually be something different than what your parents were, something different than what your grandparents were. You can actually be considered African American, Indian America, Asian American. We can't get citizenship and be considered African Asian, African Indian, and so going back to the initial point, as far as like to me, like I don't ever really get the sense that Umar really sees that, like, no, there's been big progress and steps in that black people do have a place in America, and we don't have to go run to the racism and play the black card, for that and to claim that.
Okay. Cool. So do y'all go ahead, since we at that time, we'll start with Cap, do closing statements. We're gonna Cap and then Fresh.
I would say that'd be my closing statement.
Okay. All right, Fresh.
I mean, we pretty much made all the points that we were going to make. I think my whole point is this is a critical thinking pod. That's what the platform that we started this on. And again, just like always, at the end of these conversations, man, I'm not saying he's right or wrong. Just do your research. Like, listen to what he's saying. And I don't think that it's wrong for us to require some more depth, some more facts, some more proof, some more sources on the things that he's saying, as opposed to just running behind it because he's pro black. I'm pro black. I think I'm pretty sure all the brothers on the pod are pro black, just because we are asking for more information before we just run blindly into the fight. I don't think that's wrong. I think everyone should be doing that.
Definitely.
For sure.
This is the black. This is the Vulcan soapbox. Like Fresh said, not only that we're pro black, I want to add we this show is a black empowerment show, and in order to empower yourself, you have to be critical thinker. In my opinion, that's what's going to empower us. How to think more critically. This is what the show is designed for. We're trying to make attempts to reason on the highest level as a people. So if you've been living under a rock, this is Vulcan Soapbox. This part is the most entertaining, insightful, informative show that's on the planet. So next time we finish up this Dr. Umar interview, we'd like to have y'all join us and finish up the series. All right, y'all.
Peace.
Yes, sir. All right.